The crimson sun hung low over the northern forests, painting the rugged landscape in hues of blood and amber. Gabriel Blackthorne stood alone on the ridge overlooking the battlefield, his weathered face expressionless as he surveyed the carnage below. 30 soldiers of the King's Guard lay scattered across the frost-hardened ground, their bodies contorted in final moments of agony. Not from wounds inflicted by blade or arrow, but from something far more sinister. Their faces were frozen in terror, limbs twisted at unnatural angles, as if their bodies had fought against themselves in their final moments. Gabriel knelt beside the closest fallen soldier, a young man no more than 20 summers. With practiced precision, he removed his gloves and pressed calloused fingers against the cold flesh of the man's neck, searching for the telltale markings. There, just beneath the jawline, nearly invisible to the untrained eye, was a thin silver line tracing along the vein, silver poisoning. The signature of the Light Society. They couldn't shift, Gabriel muttered to himself, his breath forming clouds in the chill evening air. They were helpless. He closed the young soldier's eyes with a gentle pass of his hand, a small mercy in a merciless world. The wolves of the Northern Kingdom had been ambushed not as warriors, but as prey. The silver in their bloodstream had prevented their transformation, leaving them to face their attackers with only human strength and speed. No match for trained hunters. Gabriel rose to his full height, ignoring the familiar ache in his left leg where an old wound reminded him of battles long past. At 58, he was past his prime by most standards, but decades of hunting had honed his body into a weapon that age had only made more dangerous. His silver-streaked dark hair was pulled back from a face carved by time and violence, eyes the color of steel scanning the tree line with predatory focus. A memory flashed unbidden across his mind. Another battlefield, another massacre, 25 years earlier. The scent of burning wood and flesh, the screams of women and children, the Great Purge, they called it now, the night when the Blackthorne name became legend among hunters and a curse among the wolf kind, the night when Gabriel had led the assault on the Moon Silverpack's ancestral home, believing he was striking a blow for humanity against savage beasts, the night he had faced Fenrir Bloodmoon, the most powerful alpha to walk the earth in generations. A necessary evil, his father had called it, the only way to ensure human survival. Gabriel had believed those words once, had lived by them, killed by them. Now, as he surveyed another slaughter ground, the justification rang hollow. The snap of a twig pulled him from his reverie. Gabriel's hand moved to the hilt of his silver-edged blade with the fluid grace of instinct. He turned slowly, senses alert to the presence watching him from the shadows of the ancient pines. "You can come out, magistrate," Gabriel called, his voice a rough rumble that carried across the stillness. "I know you've been following me since Ravenhold." Magistrate Elias Thornfield emerged from the trees, his official robes of deep blue stark against the forest backdrop. A thin man with a scholar's build and a politician's calculating eyes, he approached with the cautious respect of one who understands he stands before a living weapon. "Master Blackthorne," the magistrate acknowledged with a slight bow. "The council was not certain you would answer the summons." Gabriel turned his attention back to the battlefield. "I didn't come for the council. I came because 26 families in Ravenhold will be missing fathers and sons tonight. And who better to track those responsible than the legendary Gabriel Blackthorne?" Thornfield moved to stand beside him, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "The greatest wolf hunter in a generation." "Former hunter," Gabriel corrected, his tone flat. "I hung up my silver blades 20 years ago. And yet here you stand, investigating a wolf attack." Gabriel's eyes narrowed. This was no wolf attack. Wolves leave different signs. This was calculated, precise, the work of trained killers, not animals. The magistrate's face betrayed nothing, but Gabriel caught the subtle shift in his stance. Thornfield knew more than he was saying. "The council believes the Light Society has returned," Thornfield finally admitted. "After decades in the shadows, they've become active again across all 5 kingdoms. The Light Society, religious fanatics who viewed all shapeshifters as abominations against nature. They had been thought disbanded after the peace treaty 20 years ago, when the 5 wolf kingdoms and the human territories had established an uneasy truce. Their methods were distinctive: silver-blessed weapons, ritualistic killing patterns, and absolute devotion to the eradication of what they called the moon's cursed children. "Why now?" Gabriel asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "The blood moon approaches," Thornfield said, confirming Gabriel's fears. "The first in a century. The Society believes it will grant unprecedented power to the wolf packs. They're striking preemptively." The blood moon. Once every 100 years, when the celestial alignment granted extraordinary strength to those with wolf blood. According to legend, it was during the last blood moon that Fenrir Blood Moon had ascended to become the most powerful alpha in recorded history, capable of feats that defied explanation. Gabriel had faced Fenrir at the height of his strength and somehow survived when every other hunter had fallen. That impossible victory had made Gabriel's name both celebrated and feared throughout the territories. Few knew the truth of what had transpired in that final confrontation, and Gabriel intended to keep it that way. "The treaty is unraveling," Thornfield continued. "Without an heir, Dominic cannot maintain control over the Shadow Kingdom much longer. The other alphas sense weakness. If the Light Society continues these attacks, we will have full-scale war within months." Gabriel's jaw tightened at the mention of Dominic Blackclaw, current ruler of the Shadow Kingdom and successor to Fenrir. According to intelligence, Dominic was the strongest alpha alive, but he carried a curse that prevented him from finding a mate. Without an heir, his death would plunge the largest of the wolf kingdoms into civil war, destabilizing the fragile peace between humans and wolves. "What does the council want from me?" Gabriel asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Find who's responsible for these attacks. Stop them before the blood moon rises. Prevent the war that will consume us all." Thornfield reached inside his robes and produced a small wooden box, ornately carved with ancient symbols. "The council authorized me to give you this, should you accept." Gabriel recognized the craftsmanship. The box of binding, a relic from the early days of the Hunters Guild. He made no move to take it. "I'm not a hunter anymore, Magistrate." "No," Thornfield agreed. "You're something far more valuable. You're the only human who has ever defeated an alpha in single combat. You're a symbol, Master Blackthorn. To humans, you represent our strength, our ability to stand against creatures of superior physical power. To the wolves, you are the bogeyman, the hunter who cannot be escaped." Gabriel laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "Is that what they teach in your council histories? That I defeated Fenrir Bloodmoon in honorable combat?" He shook his head. "History is written by the victorious and twisted by those who profit from the lies." Thornfield's expression remained impassive, but his eyes betrayed a flash of unease. "Whatever happened that night, the fact remains. You lived when others died. You understand our enemy as no other does." Gabriel turned to face the magistrate fully, his weathered face harsh in the fading light. "The wolves are not our enemy, Thornfield. They never have been. We've been played against each other by forces that benefit from our mutual destruction." "Poetic sentiments won't protect the villages that border the wolf territories," Thornfield countered. 6 settlements have been attacked in the past month alone. Ravenhold is the latest, not the first. Something must be done. Gabriel's gaze drifted back to the fallen soldiers, young men who would never return home, whose families would mourn without understanding the larger game being played. He had walked away from this world of blood and silver, had built a solitary existence far from the politics of councils and kingdoms. Yet here it was again, reaching for him with cold, familiar hands. 3 weeks until the blood moon," Gabriel said finally. "I'll find who's responsible for these attacks. After that, the council and I are finished." Thornfield nodded, offering the wooden box once more. Gabriel took it this time, feeling its weight in his hands. The carvings seemed to shift beneath his fingers, ancient magic recognizing its bearer. "The council has arranged accommodations in Ravenhold," Thornfield said, "and access to any resources you require." "I work alone," Gabriel replied, tucking the box into his coat, "and I'll need something more valuable than accommodations. Information." Everything the Council has on Wolfpack movements in the past year, Light Society sightings, and the current state of Dominic Blackclaw's court. Thornfield hesitated only briefly before nodding. It will be delivered to you by morning. The Council is grateful. Save your gratitude, Gabriel interrupted. I'm not doing this for the Council. I'm doing it for them. He gestured toward the fallen soldiers, and for the innocents who will die if this escalates. Without waiting for a response, Gabriel turned and began the long descent from the ridge, his mind already mapping the investigation ahead. The familiar weight of purpose settled on his shoulders, a burden he had thought left behind. 20 years of peace shattered by silver and blood. The old hunter in him stirred, awakening instincts long dormant. As darkness fell across the northern forests, Gabriel Blackthorn walked the path back to Ravenhold, a solitary figure caught between two worlds that had never truly let him go. The village of Ravenhold clung to the edge of the northern territories like a stubborn child refusing to release its mother's skirt. Surrounded on three sides by ancient forest and backed against the gray mountains, it had survived centuries of border disputes, harsh winters, and the occasional wolf attack through sheer collective stubbornness. Stone cottages with thatched roofs lined narrow streets that wound upward toward the village center, where a modest keep overlooked the settlement from its perch on a rocky outcropping. Gabriel moved through the evening shadows, avoiding the main thoroughfare where villagers huddled in anxious groups, discussing the day's grim discoveries. News traveled quickly in places like Ravenhold. By now, everyone would know about the massacred patrol, and fear would be taking root in the community's collective consciousness. He made his way to the Green Stag Inn, a weathered two-story building with warm light spilling from its windows. As he approached, the sounds of hushed conversation drifted through the night air, punctuated by occasional bursts of forced laughter, the kind people use to keep terror at bay. The common room fell silent as Gabriel entered, all eyes turning toward the stranger in their midst. Recognition dawned on several faces, followed by a mixture of awe and apprehension. The Blackthorn name carried weight, especially in border villages where wolf encounters were common. "Master Blackthorn," the innkeeper called out, breaking the uncomfortable silence. A burly man with a salt and pepper beard and missing 2 fingers on his left hand, he had the look of someone who had faced his share of trouble. "We've a room prepared for you, as the magistrate arranged, and a private table in the corner, if you prefer." Gabriel nodded his thanks and moved to the indicated table, situated in a shadowed alcove with a clear view of both the main entrance and the back door. Old habits. He ordered a simple meal and ale, then spread out a worn leather map of the Northern Territories on the table before him. As the innkeeper retreated, whispers resumed around the room, carrying fragments to Gabriel's trained ears. The Gabriel Blackthorn. Killed more wolves than any hunter alive. Say he faced Fenrir Bloodmoon himself. Only man to survive the Moonsilver Massacre. Legends and half-truths, the kind that grew with each retelling. Gabriel ignored them, focusing instead on the map before him. He marked the locations of recent attacks with small dots, creating a pattern that told its own story. The strikes were not random. They formed a perimeter around the ancient forest known as the Whispering Woods, a vast stretch of primeval trees that had stood since before human memory, serving as neutral territory between human settlements and wolf domains. The Whispering Woods held significance to both species. For humans, it was a source of rare herbs and timber. For wolves, it contained sacred sites tied to their lunar rituals. According to the treaty, both sides had equal access rights, provided they announced their presence and limited their numbers. Now someone was systematically eliminating patrols around its borders. The innkeeper returned with a wooden platter of venison, root vegetables, and dark bread, along with a tankard of amber ale. "Will there be anything else, Master Blackthorn?" Gabriel glanced up. "Information. Tell me about the attacks on Ravenhold." The innkeeper glanced nervously around the room before pulling up a chair, uninvited. "3 so far," he said in a lowered voice. "First was a hunting party, 2 months back. 4 men went out, none returned. Second was a merchant, and his guards traveling the North Road. Found them torn apart 5 weeks ago." He swallowed hard. "The patrol you found today was the third." "Any survivors?" "One, from the merchant party. Badly wounded, mind addled by what he saw. He's with the village healer, though there's little hope for his recovery." Gabriel nodded, committing the information to memory. "The victims, were they consumed?" The innkeeper paled slightly at the question. "No, that's what's strange. Wolves kill for food when they attack livestock or game. But these bodies, they were just torn, like the killing was the point. Some saying it's not wolves at all, but something worse." "Something worse?" The man leaned closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Some say it's the rogue Alpha returned, Fenrir Bloodmoon, back from the dead to reclaim his throne." Gabriel kept his expression neutral, though the name sent a cold spike through his chest. "Fenrir Bloodmoon died 25 years ago. I was there." "So they say," the innkeeper replied, clearly not entirely convinced. "But there are tales, whispers from the deep forest. They say he's gathering forces, building an army of rogues cast out from their packs. They say the blood moon will herald his return." Superstition and fear, the constant companions of border settlements. Yet Gabriel knew better than to dismiss local folklore entirely. Such stories often contained kernels of truth, wrapped in layers of exaggeration. "The village healer," Gabriel said, changing the subject. "Where can I find them?" "Evelyn Silverwood," the innkeeper supplied. "North edge of the village, small cottage with a blue door. Can't miss the herb garden. But she doesn't much care for visitors, especially not after dark." Gabriel nodded his thanks, and the innkeeper took the hint, returning to his duties behind the long wooden bar. As Gabriel ate, he continued studying the map, his mind processing the information gathered so far. The attacks formed a pattern, yes, but to what purpose? The Light Society typically struck at wolf territories directly, not human settlements or patrols. A new thought formed, unsettling in its implications. What if these attacks weren't meant to eliminate the patrols themselves, but to provoke a response, to draw out something or someone from hiding? Gabriel finished his meal and left a generous payment on the table. The night had deepened around Ravenhold, a thin mist rising from the ground to swirl around ankles and obscure distant shapes. Perfect conditions for an ambush or for moving unseen through hostile territory. He made his way northward through the village, past shuttered homes where families huddled behind locked doors. The cottage with the blue door stood apart from its neighbors, surrounded by an impressive garden even now in the early autumn chill. Plants. Gabriel recognized for their medicinal properties grew in orderly rows, some common, others rare enough to fetch high prices in city markets. Before he could reach the door, a voice called out from the shadows. "The great wolf slayer comes seeking a healer's aid. How unexpected." Gabriel turned toward the voice, hand instinctively moving to his blade. A woman stepped from between tall stalks of wolfsbane, her silver-streaked dark hair falling loose around a face that might once have been beautiful, before life carved its hardships into every line. She appeared to be in her mid-40s, though something in her amber eyes spoke of greater age, of wisdom earned through suffering. "Evelyn Silverwood?" Gabriel asked, though he already knew the answer. "And you are Gabriel Blackthorn," she replied, not a question but an accusation. "I recognize the silver in your blade, Hunter, the same silver that poisons the man in my care." Gabriel noted her choice of words. Not soldier, not guard, but man, as if she deliberately avoided identifying him as one or the other, human or wolf. "I need to speak with your patient," Gabriel said. "I'm investigating the attacks." Evelyn's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in those amber eyes, too quick to identify. "He is beyond speech. The silver has reached his mind, clouding his thoughts with fever dreams and terror." "I've seen silver poisoning before," Gabriel countered. "If he lives still, there's a chance he remembers something of the attack." "And what makes you believe I would allow you near him? Your reputation precedes you, Blackthorn, the butcher of Moon Silverpack, the man who slaughtered women and children in their beds. The accusation hung in the air between them, sharp as any blade. Gabriel had heard the whispers for decades, had carried the weight of that night like chains around his soul. "I didn't come to defend my past," he said finally. "I came to prevent more deaths. Whatever you think of me, we both know these attacks will continue unless someone stops them." Evelyn studied him for a long moment, her gaze penetrating in a way that made Gabriel want to step back, as if she could see through the carefully constructed walls around his heart. "Very well," she said at last. "You may see him. But understand this, Hunter. He is under my protection. You will do nothing to increase his suffering, or you will answer to me." The threat might have seemed absurd coming from a village healer facing a legendary wolf hunter, but something in her tone gave Gabriel pause. This was not a woman who made idle threats. "You have my word," he said, and meant it. She led him into the cottage, a single room dominated by a central hearth where herbs hung drying from the rafters, filling the air with a complex mixture of scents. Gabriel recognized some used in traditional healing, others known for their effectiveness against wolfkind. Interesting choices for a village healer. On a narrow bed against the far wall lay a man, or what remained of one. His body was a road map of vicious wounds, some partially healed, others still seeping despite careful bandaging. His breath came in shallow gasps, skin sheened with fever sweat. Most telling were the silver-black lines tracing the veins around each wound, the unmistakable sign of silver poisoning in its advanced stages. "He should be dead," Gabriel observed quietly. "No one survives this level of silver in the bloodstream, especially not—" He stopped himself. "Especially not a wolf?" Evelyn finished for him, arching an eyebrow. "You noticed, then?" "Yes, he is wolf-kind, though not from any pack I recognize." Gabriel moved closer, examining the wounded man with experienced eyes. The stranger was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, with the powerful build typical of beta wolves, those who served as warriors and enforcers for their alphas. His features, though distorted by pain, showed the angular bone structure common to northern wolves. Most striking was a series of ritual scars across his chest and arms, elaborate patterns Gabriel had seen only once before. "Moon silver pack," Gabriel breathed, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "But that's impossible. They were wiped out. Every last one." "Apparently not every last one," Evelyn replied, her tone carefully neutral as she checked the man's bandages. "He was conscious briefly when I found him in the forest 3 nights ago. Called himself Raiden, claimed to be a guardian of the sacred glade." Gabriel's mind raced with implications. A survivor of Moon's silver pack after all these years? The pack he had personally helped destroy, believing them responsible for attacks on human settlements. The pack whose alpha, Fenrir Bloodmoon, had nearly killed Gabriel in their final confrontation. "Did he say what attacked him?" "Men in silver masks," Evelyn said, wielding weapons that burned like fire and paralyzed his ability to shift. He managed to escape, but not before they injected him with something. Pure silver essence, from what I can tell. Far more potent than anything I've encountered. Gabriel had heard of such weapons. Experimental designs developed by the Hunters Guild during the Great Purge. Silver in its pure form, liquefied through alchemical processes and delivered directly into the bloodstream. A gruesome, painful death for any wolf, their own accelerated healing turning against them as the silver spread through their system. "He should be dead," Gabriel repeated, more to himself than to Evelyn. "Yes," she agreed. "By all rights, he should have succumbed within hours of the attack. Yet here he is, 4 days later, still fighting. His will to live is remarkable." There was something in her voice, a note of admiration perhaps, or something deeper. Gabriel glanced at her, noting the careful way she tended the wounded wolf, her movements gentle despite the practical efficiency of a seasoned healer. "You've treated wolfkind before," Gabriel observed. Not an accusation, merely a statement of fact. Evelyn's hands stilled momentarily. "I've treated all who needed healing, regardless of their nature. Is that not a healer's purpose?" Before Gabriel could respond, the wounded wolf stirred, a low growl emanating from his throat. His eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that glowed a dull amber in the dim light of the cottage, the color wavering as he fought against the silver poison. "Alpha," the wolf rasped, his voice barely audible. "Must warn. Alpha." Gabriel stepped closer, instinct and training taking over. "Raiden," he said firmly. "Who did this to you? What were they seeking in the Whispering Woods?" The wolf's glowing eyes fixed on Gabriel, recognition and hatred flashing across his features. "Blackthorn," he snarled, the word mangled by pain and fury. "Butcher, traitor to your own blood." Gabriel froze, the accusation striking deeper than he cared to admit. "What do you mean, my own blood?" Instead of answering, Raiden convulsed suddenly, his back arching off the bed as silver-black lines surged visibly beneath his skin. Evelyn moved swiftly, pressing the wolf back down with surprising strength while reaching for a vial among her supplies. "He's seizing again," she said tersely. "The silver is attacking his heart. Step back, Hunter." Gabriel complied, watching as Evelyn administered whatever remedy the vial contained. Her hands began to move in intricate patterns over the wolf's chest, and for a moment, Gabriel thought he saw a faint luminescence surrounding her fingers, a soft silver-blue glow that seemed to push back against the black lines of poison. Impossible. No human healer possessed such abilities. Yet the evidence was before his eyes as the wolf's seizure subsided, his breathing stabilizing once more. "What did you just do?" Gabriel asked quietly. Evelyn didn't look up, continuing her ministrations. "I used what remedies I have available. Nothing more." It was a lie, and they both knew it. But before Gabriel could press further, a sound from outside the cottage caught his attention. A low, mournful howl, distant but clear even to human ears. The wolf on the bed stirred again, responding to the call with a weak sound of his own. "They found him," Evelyn said, her voice tight with tension. "Sooner than expected." "Who has?" Gabriel moved toward the cottage door, hand on his blade. "The pack, of course," Evelyn replied, as if it should have been obvious. "They've been searching for him since he disappeared. Now they've picked up his scent." Another howl sounded, closer this time. Not a hunting call, but a communication, a message to the wounded beta. Gabriel recognized the pattern from his years tracking wolf packs. They were coming for their own. "If they find a hunter here with their wounded packmate, they won't ask questions first," Evelyn warned, moving to stand between Gabriel and the door. "You should leave, now." Gabriel weighed his options quickly. Confronting an entire pack would be suicide, even for someone of his skills. Yet something held him back from immediate retreat. The wolf's words echoed in his mind. "Traitor to your own blood." What could that possibly mean? "There's another way out," Evelyn said, gesturing toward what appeared to be a solid wall near the hearth. "A tunnel that leads to the edge of the Whispering Woods. Few know of its existence." Gabriel studied her face, searching for deception and finding none. "Why help me escape? By your own admission, you consider me a butcher." Evelyn's expression softened slightly, though her amber eyes remained guarded. "Because despite your reputation, you came seeking answers, not vengeance. Because something larger than old hatreds is unfolding here." She paused, seeming to weigh her next words carefully. "And because I sense you are not what legends claim you to be." Before Gabriel could respond, the wounded wolf let out a strangled cry, his body contorting in another seizure more violent than the last. Evelyn rushed to his side, but this time her remedies seemed ineffective against the surge of silver poison. "He's dying," she said, urgency replacing her earlier calm. "The silver has reached his heart." Gabriel moved to the bedside, an inexplicable sense of obligation drawing him forward. This wolf was perhaps the last survivor of the Moon Silver Pack, a living link to that fateful night 25 years ago. If he died now, the truth might die with him. "Can you save him?" Gabriel asked. Evelyn glanced up, surprise flashing across her features. "Why would a wolf hunter care whether he lives or dies?" "Because he has answers I need," Gabriel replied honestly. and because enough blood has been spilled in old conflicts. Something shifted in Evelyn's expression, a decision made. "There is one possibility," she said, "but it requires something I cannot provide alone." "What do you need?" "Your strength," she said simply, "and your blood." Before Gabriel could question this strange request, the howls outside grew louder, multiple voices now joining the chorus. Time was running out. "What must I do?" he asked. Evelyn moved with sudden purpose, retrieving a small silver dagger from among her supplies. "Your blood carries something unique," she explained, her voice taking on a rhythmic quality. "The blood of one who has faced an alpha and survived. It contains a power that might counteract the silver poison." Gabriel should have refused. Everything in his training warned against blood rituals, against mixing human essence with wolf magic. Yet something deeper than reason compelled him to extend his hand when Evelyn gestured for it. With a swift motion, she drew the blade across his palm, deep enough to draw a steady flow of crimson. Then she guided his bleeding hand to the wolf's chest, directly over the heart, where the silver poison was most concentrated. "Hold steady," she instructed, "and whatever happens, do not break contact until I tell you." As Gabriel's blood made contact with the wolf's skin, Evelyn began an incantation in a language he didn't recognize, her hands moving in complex patterns above their joined connection. The air in the cottage grew heavy, charged with unseen energy that made the hairs on Gabriel's neck stand erect. What happened next defied explanation. Gabriel's blood, where it touched the wolf's skin, began to glow with the same silver-blue luminescence he had glimpsed earlier around Evelyn's fingers. The light spread outward, following the pathways of the silver poison, but pushing it back, neutralizing the corruption wherever it touched. Gabriel felt a sudden connection forming, as if a bridge had opened between his consciousness and the wounded wolf's mind. Images flashed across his vision, a moonlit glade deep in the whispering woods, a sacred stone circle where wolves gathered during full moons, a hidden chamber beneath ancient trees, guarding something of immeasurable value. Then, most disturbing of all, a memory that couldn't possibly be his own, Fenrir Bloodmoon standing tall and proud before his pack, a woman with silver-streaked dark hair and amber eyes at his side. Between them stood a small child, a boy with eyes that shifted between wolf gold and human gray. The vision ended abruptly as Evelyn broke the connection, pulling Gabriel's hand away from the wolf's chest. He staggered backward, dizzy from blood loss and the inexplicable experience. "What was that?" he demanded, voice hoarse. "What did you do?" Evelyn didn't answer immediately, her attention on the wounded wolf. The silver-black lines had receded significantly, though not disappeared entirely. Raiden's breathing had stabilized, his expression peaceful for the first time since Gabriel had entered the cottage. "I used your blood to neutralize the poison," she said finally, binding Gabriel's wounded hand with a clean cloth. "Your encounter with Fenrir changed you, Hunter, left a mark deeper than the scars you carry visibly." Gabriel's mind reeled with implications, with questions he wasn't certain he wanted answered. "Those visions," he began, "they weren't mine." "No," Evelyn agreed. "They were his memories, bleeding into your consciousness through the connection. A side effect I didn't anticipate." The howls outside had ceased, an ominous silence falling over the village. They were close now, perhaps already within Ravenhold's boundaries. "You need to leave," Evelyn urged, moving to the concealed door near the hearth. She pressed a specific stone in the wall, revealing a narrow passage beyond. "Follow this tunnel until you reach the old oak at the forest's edge. Wait there until dawn." "And then what?" Gabriel asked, still struggling to process everything that had transpired. Evelyn's amber eyes met his, filled with a knowledge that seemed to transcend their brief acquaintance. "And then follow the vision you were shown. Find the sacred glade in the whispering woods. Discover what the Light Society is truly seeking." She pressed something into his hand, a small amulet carved from pale wood and inscribed with symbols similar to those on the wolf's ritual scars. "This will guide you when the path seems unclear." Gabriel studied the amulet, recognition stirring. The symbols matched those on the box of binding given to him by Magistrate Thornfield. "You know more than you're telling me," he said, not a question, but a statement. "Yes," Evelyn admitted, "as do you, Hunter. The truth of that night 25 years ago, the reason you survived when no other human could have, the reason you abandoned the silver blades and disappeared for 20 years. Gabriel's jaw tightened. "Be careful, healer. Some secrets are dangerous to those who speak them aloud." "All important truths are dangerous," she countered, "but none so dangerous as the lies we tell ourselves." She glanced toward the door of the cottage, where shadows moved against the windows. "Go now. They won't harm me, but you they will kill without hesitation." Gabriel hesitated, torn between the need for answers and the instinct for survival. "I'll return," he said. "This isn't finished." "No," Evelyn agreed, her expression softening briefly. "It's only just beginning." With that cryptic statement hanging between them, Gabriel entered the hidden tunnel, the wall sliding shut behind him. In the darkness, the amulet in his hand began to glow faintly, illuminating the path ahead with the same silver-blue light that had pushed back the poison in Raiden's veins. As Gabriel made his way through the narrow passage, one thought dominated his mind. Everything he had believed about the past 25 years, about his legendary victory over Fenrir Bloodmoon, about the very nature of the conflict between humans and wolves, might be built on foundations of sand. And if those foundations crumbled, what terrible truths might be revealed in their collapse? The tunnel stretched before him, leading into unknown darkness, just as the path ahead promised revelations he might not be prepared to face. The ancient oak stood as silent sentinel at the edge of the whispering woods, its massive trunk wider than 3 men could embrace, its gnarled branches reaching skyward like supplicating arms. Dawn had broken an hour earlier, painting the forest in golden light that failed to penetrate the deeper shadows beneath the canopy. Gabriel Blackthorn leaned against the oak's rough bark, one hand absently touching the wooden amulet Evelyn had given him. Throughout the night, it had pulsed with that strange silver-blue light, growing warmer whenever he faced the heart of the forest. Sleep had eluded him, his mind replaying the inexplicable events in the healer's cottage, the ritual with the wounded wolf, the visions that couldn't possibly be memories of his own, the implications of what Evelyn had said about his blood being changed by his encounter with Fenrir Bloodmoon. "Impossible," he muttered, pushing away from the tree and pacing the small clearing. "Fenrir died that night. I drove silver through his heart myself." Yet doubt gnawed at him, a persistent whisper that had grown louder over the years. No body had ever been recovered from the burning ruins of the Moon Silver Pack's ancestral home. In the chaos of that night, with fires consuming the structures and hunters battling wolves throughout the settlement, the final confrontation between Gabriel and Fenrir had occurred without witnesses. Only Gabriel had emerged from the Alpha's chambers, grievously wounded but alive, bearing the news of Fenrir's death. A hero's tale, they called it. A human hunter defeating the most powerful Alpha in generations through courage and skill alone. Gabriel had never corrected the story, letting the legend grow even as he retreated from the hunting life, haunted by nightmares that wouldn't fade. The amulet pulsed again, more insistently this time. Gabriel held it up, watching as it seemed to pull toward a particular direction, deeper into the whispering woods. The carved symbols glowed brighter in response to his attention, ancient wolf runes that few humans could decipher. Gabriel recognized them only because he had spent decades studying wolf culture, believing knowledge was the most effective weapon in a hunter's arsenal. Protection, guidance, hidden path. The translations came easily, though he had never formally learned the language. Another mystery to add to the growing list. With a resigned sigh, Gabriel checked his weapons, silver blade at his hip, silver-tipped bolts for the compact crossbow strapped to his back, and various smaller blades concealed throughout his clothing. Old habits never truly died, especially when entering territory known to harbor wolf packs. The amulet tugged again, and Gabriel finally surrendered to its guidance. He stepped beyond the ancient oak, crossing the invisible boundary into the whispering woods. Immediately, the atmosphere changed. The air grew thicker, heavy with the scent of moss and decay and something older, a primal musk that spoke to instincts buried deep in human memory. Sounds dampened, birdsong fading to distant echoes. Even the morning light seemed different, filtered through leaves that moved in patterns that didn't match the gentle breeze. The Whispering Woods had earned its name honestly. As Gabriel followed the amulet's guidance along barely visible game trails, the whispering began. At first, it seemed mere trick of wind through leaves, but gradually, the sounds gained coherence. Not words precisely, but impressions, emotions, memories, not his own brushing against his consciousness like cobwebs across the face. Honor the pact. Remember the old ways. Blood calls to blood. Gabriel shook his head, trying to clear it of the phantom voices. This was why humans avoided the deeper reaches of these woods. The place had a reputation for driving trespassers to madness, causing them to wander in circles until starvation or exposure claimed them. Only wolves moved freely here, their connection to the moon's magic protecting them from the forest's disorienting influence. The amulet grew warmer in his grasp, pulling him ever forward. Hours passed as Gabriel navigated the increasingly dense undergrowth, relying on decades of woodcraft to maintain his direction when all natural indicators seemed deliberately misleading. Streams flowed uphill. The sun appeared to move backward across patches of visible sky. Moss grew on all sides of trees rather than just the north. By midday, Gabriel had penetrated deeper into the Whispering Woods than any human in living memory, according to the records he'd studied. The forest had changed around him, ancient trees giving way to truly primeval giants that must have stood since the First Age. The ground beneath his feet felt different too, more resilient, almost responsive to his tread. The whispering had grown louder, more insistent. Guardian approaches. Blood of the betrayer. Moon's chosen returns. Gabriel paused at the base of a particularly massive tree, its trunk carved with wolf runes so ancient the bark had grown around and through them, making them part of the living wood. He traced one symbol with his fingertips, feeling a jolt of recognition despite never having seen this particular variant before. "The sacred glade," he translated aloud, his voice sounding strangely muffled in the heavy air. "Last sanctuary of the moonborn." The amulet pulsed once more, then went dark and cool in his hand. He had arrived at his destination, or at least its threshold. According to Raiden's visions, the sacred glade lay just beyond this sentinel tree, a place of power where wolves gathered during significant lunar events. The blood moon approaches. The words from Evelyn's cottage echoed in his mind. The first in a century. Gabriel steeled himself and stepped around the ancient tree, emerging into a perfectly circular clearing approximately 50 paces across. At its center stood a ring of standing stones, weathered monoliths carved with elaborate runes similar to those on the sentinel tree. The air here felt different, charged with energy that made the hairs on Gabriel's arms stand erect. Sunlight streamed down unobstructed, bathing the circle in golden light that somehow felt silver-tinged, as if the moon's essence remained even during daylight hours. But it was not the stone circle that captured Gabriel's attention. It was the massive black wolf standing within it. The creature was enormous even by Alpha standards, its shoulder reaching higher than Gabriel's waist, its body rippling with muscle beneath a midnight coat. Most striking were its eyes. Not the amber or gold typical of wolf kind, but a startling steel gray that fixed on Gabriel with unmistakable intelligence. Human and wolf regarded each other across the glade, neither moving, neither breaking the silence that had fallen so completely that even the whispering of the woods had ceased. The standoff might have continued indefinitely if not for the wolf's sudden movement, not toward Gabriel as expected, but a deliberate step backward, then another, creating space between them. Then came the shift. Gabriel had witnessed wolf transformations before, always violent, always painful as bones broke and reformed, muscle tore and reknit, skin stretched and changed. This was different. The black wolf seemed to shimmer, its form blurring at the edges before smoothly transitioning from animal to human with none of the usual agonies. Where the wolf had stood now knelt a man, naked, but apparently unconcerned with his state. his body marked with ritual scars similar to those Gabriel had seen on Raiden. The man rose gracefully to his full height, easily matching Gabriel's 6 feet, though considerably more muscular. His hair was black as the wolf's coat, streaked with silver at the temples, framing a face that would have been handsome if not for the vicious scar that ran from right temple to left jawline. And his eyes, the same steel gray that had regarded Gabriel from the wolf's face moments before. "Gabriel Blackthorn," the man said, his voice a deep rumble like distant thunder. "The legendary wolf hunter who survived the impossible. You've aged well for a human." Gabriel's hand had moved to his blade the moment the shift began, but he made no further motion toward it. Something about this encounter felt predetermined, as if he had been moving toward this meeting his entire life. "You have me at a disadvantage," Gabriel replied, keeping his tone neutral. "You know my name, but I don't know yours." The man's lips curved into what might have been a smile, though it didn't reach those steel-gray eyes. "Don't you? Look closer, Hunter. See the truth your mind has hidden from you for 25 years. Gabriel studied the stranger's face, that nagging sense of familiarity growing stronger. The scar was new, but the features beneath it, the proud line of the jaw, the high cheekbones, the penetrating gaze that seemed to look through flesh to the soul beneath. Impossible. "Fenrir Bloodmoon died in the fires of Moon Silverpack's massacre," Gabriel said, though uncertainty crept into his voice. "I killed him myself." "Did you?" The man who couldn't possibly be Fenrir took a step forward, then another, closing the distance between them with the fluid grace of a predator. "Or is that the story you've told yourself to survive the truth of what happened that night?" Images flashed through Gabriel's mind, fragments of memory long suppressed. The final confrontation in Fenrir's chambers, the silver blade in his hand, blood, so much blood, pooling beneath them both, and eyes shifting from gold to gray as life seemed to fade from them. "I drove silver through your heart," Gabriel insisted, though the memory suddenly seemed less certain than it had for 25 years. "I watched you die." "You watched me fall," Fenrir corrected. "You saw what I wanted you to see, what you needed to see to survive the night with your sanity intact." Another step closer, and Gabriel could now see the evidence he'd been denying, a circular scar on the man's chest, directly over his heart, precisely where Gabriel's silver blade had pierced all those years ago. "How?" Gabriel whispered, the question encompassing far more than mere survival. How had an alpha survived a silver blade through the heart? How had he hidden for 25 years? How had the most recognizable wolf in the territories remained undetected? "The same way you survived wounds that should have killed any human," Fenrir replied, his gaze unwavering. "The same reason your blood could heal Raiden when no medicine could. The same truth Evelyn Silverwood has hidden from you your entire life." Gabriel's mind raced, piecing together fragments that had never fit properly in the narrative he'd been taught. His unnaturally quick healing, his ability to sense wolves before seeing them, the strange affinity for moon magic that had made him such an effective hunter. "No," he said, shaking his head in denial. "I'm human, born to human parents, raised in the Hunters Guild from childhood." "Half-truths and deliberate lies," Fenrir replied, his tone surprisingly gentle for a creature known for his ferocity. "You were born to Miranda Blackthorn, yes, a human woman of remarkable courage, but your father was no ordinary hunter." Gabriel took an involuntary step backward, the implications too monstrous to contemplate. "You're saying my father was wolf-kind," Fenrir confirmed. "Though not just any wolf. An alpha of the Moon Silver Pack, my own blood brother." The world seemed to tilt beneath Gabriel's feet, decades of certainty crumbling in an instant. If true, it would mean everything he'd believed about himself, about his purpose, about the night that had defined his life, was built on lies. "Why would the Hunters Guild raise the child of a wolf?" he demanded, grasping for logic in the face of revelation. "Why train their enemy's offspring as a weapon against his own kind?" "Because they didn't know," Fenrir said. "Your mother hid the truth from everyone, including you. She feared what would happen if the guild discovered your heritage. And rightly so. They would have killed you without hesitation, regardless of your human appearance. Gabriel's hand found the trunk of a nearby tree, steadying himself against the onslaught of revelations. My mother died when I was 5. Killed by wolves, I was told. Another lie, Fenrir said, his expression darkening. Miranda Blackthorne was executed by the guild's inner circle when they began to suspect the truth. They made it appear as a wolf attack to cement your hatred for our kind, to ensure your loyalty to their cause. Each word struck Gabriel like a physical blow, reshaping his understanding of his entire existence. If what Fenrir claimed was true, he had spent his life hunting his own blood, killing distant kin in service to those who had murdered his mother. "Why tell me this now?" Gabriel asked, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. "After 25 years of silence, why reveal yourself? Why reveal this?" Fenrir's expression grew grave. "Because the blood moon approaches, and with it a danger greater than the ancient feud between our kinds. The Light Society has returned, but they are merely puppets. The true enemy is older, darker, and threatens both human and wolf alike." The Alpha moved toward the stone circle at the center of the glade, gesturing for Gabriel to follow. Warily, Gabriel complied, his hand never straying far from his weapon despite the revelations. Trust was not so easily built after a lifetime of enmity. "What we believed was a simple conflict between species was engineered," Fenrir continued, stepping between two of the ancient monoliths. "The Hunters' Guild and the wolf packs were manipulated into mutual destruction by something that predates both our kinds, something that feeds on our conflict, grows stronger with each generation of bloodshed." At the center of the stone circle, Fenrir knelt and placed his palm against the ground. The earth responded immediately, a seam opening beneath his touch to reveal a hidden chamber below. A soft, silver-blue light emanated from the opening, the same uncanny illumination Gabriel had witnessed in Evelyn's cottage. "Before I show you what lies beneath, you must understand what's at stake," Fenrir said, his gray eyes locking with Gabriel's. "The blood moon grants power to wolfkind, yes, but it also weakens certain ancient barriers that have kept something imprisoned since the First Age. The Light Society seeks to break these barriers completely, believing they serve wolf interests, when in truth they're being manipulated by the very evil the barriers contain." Gabriel approached the opening cautiously, peering into the hidden chamber. Stone steps descended into darkness, the strange light emanating from runes carved into the walls, pulsing like heartbeats. "And what exactly is this ancient evil?" Gabriel asked, skepticism warring with the evidence before his eyes. "The Silvered Ones," Fenrir replied, the name carrying weight even in the charged atmosphere of the glade. "Creatures neither human nor wolf, but something that predates both. They feed on life essence, growing stronger with each soul they consume. They were imprisoned by the combined efforts of the first human hunters and wolf alphas, a coalition forgotten by history." Gabriel had heard legends of the Silvered Ones in his studies of ancient texts, stories dismissed as mere mythology by modern scholars, beings of immense power that had nearly consumed all life before being bound by forgotten magic. But legends often contained kernels of truth, as he well knew. If such creatures exist, why hasn't their prison been breached during previous blood moons? Gabriel challenged. "Because the bloodlines responsible for maintaining the barriers have continued unbroken until now," Fenrir explained. "With each generation, children of both human hunter and wolf alpha bloodlines renewed the bindings through sacred rituals. But the Great Purge 25 years ago nearly wiped out the wolf bloodlines, and systematic elimination has thinned the hunter bloodlines to near extinction." Gabriel's mind connected the pieces with growing horror. "And my blood, the blood of both worlds, is the key," Fenrir confirmed. "Either to strengthen the barriers, or in the wrong hands, to shatter them completely. Which is why the Light Society has been hunting anyone connected to the Moon Silver Pack. They need the blood of a direct descendant of the original covenant. Your blood, Gabriel, the blood of my brother's son." The revelation hung between them in the sacred space, undeniable despite Gabriel's lifetime of beliefs to the contrary. The amulet Evelyn had given him began to glow again, responding to the energies of the hidden chamber. "How can I believe any of this?" Gabriel demanded, though the certainty in his denial had crumbled. "You've been my enemy my entire life. Everything I know about wolfkind comes from hunting your people." "Not everything," Fenrir countered. "The instincts you've relied upon, the uncanny abilities that made you the greatest hunter of your generation, those come from your wolf blood. The connection you feel to the moon's cycles, even while denying it. The accelerated healing that has kept you fighting well past when most human hunters retire. You've always known you were different, Gabriel. You simply couldn't face the reason why." Gabriel wanted to deny it all, to reject the foundation-shattering revelations, yet something deep within him responded to Fenrir's words, a recognition that transcended conscious thought. The strange affinity he'd always felt for the forests at night. The inexplicable sadness that had overcome him during the Moon Silver Pack massacre, even as he participated in the slaughter. The dreams of running on 4 legs beneath a full moon, dreams he had attributed to spending too much time tracking his prey. "If I am what you claim," Gabriel said slowly, "why didn't you kill me that night? I was alone in your chambers, intent on your death. You could have ended me with a single blow." Fenrir's expression softened, an emotion Gabriel couldn't quite identify, crossing his scarred features. "Because I recognized you the moment you entered my chambers, not as a hunter, but as my brother's missing cub, stolen from our pack 15 years earlier. I could not bring myself to kill the child my brother had mourned until his dying day." "Then why let me believe I'd killed you? Why disappear for 25 years? "Because you weren't ready for the truth," Fenrir said simply. "And because I needed to find the source of the corruption that had turned hunter against wolf, to understand why the ancient covenant had been broken. It took years of searching, of following trails that had grown cold centuries ago." Gabriel stared down into the hidden chamber, the pulsing runes seeming to call to something within his blood. "And now? What happens now that you've found me, revealed these truths I never asked to know?" "Now you make a choice," Fenrir replied. "Continue believing the lies that have defined your existence, or accept your true heritage and help prevent a catastrophe that will consume both our kinds. The blood moon rises in 3 weeks. By then, the barriers must be reinforced, or everything ends." Before Gabriel could respond, a howl shattered the sacred silence of the glade, a warning call that both men recognized instantly. Danger approaching, multiple threats converging on their position. "The Light Society," Fenrir growled, his eyes flashing momentarily to wolf gold. "They've followed you here, as I feared they might." Gabriel's hand moved to his blade by instinct, then hesitated. Everything he'd believed about himself, about his purpose, hung in the balance of this moment. If Fenrir spoke truth, then the silver weapons he carried were an abomination against his own kind. If the Alpha lied, then Gabriel stood alone and vulnerable before his greatest enemy. "I don't expect you to trust me immediately," Fenrir said, reading Gabriel's hesitation. 25 years of hatred cannot be undone in a single conversation. But right now, we face a common enemy. Fight beside me, observe how your instincts respond, and afterward decide what you believe." Another howl sounded, closer this time, answered by multiple calls from different directions. The pack was converging, preparing to defend their alpha. "Your pack still lives," Gabriel observed, surprising himself with the lack of hostility in his tone. "I was told the Moon Silver Pack was wiped out completely." "Some survived," Fenrir confirmed. "We've lived in the shadows, rebuilding our strength, waiting for the moment when truth could finally emerge. Much like you've done, Hunter, hiding from your former guild while seeking answers to questions you couldn't fully articulate." The comparison struck Gabriel with unexpected force. He had indeed withdrawn from the hunting life, had spent decades in self-imposed exile, haunted by doubts he couldn't express even to himself. Movement at the edge of the glade caught Gabriel's attention. Figures in silver masks emerged from the trees, their long robes emblazoned with the symbol of the Light Society, a silver sword piercing a full moon. Each carried weapons designed specifically for wolf hunting: silver-tipped spears, crossbows with silver bolts, and vials of what Gabriel recognized as pure silver essence, the same poison that had nearly killed Raiden. "Well, well," called the lead figure, his voice muffled behind his mask. "The great Gabriel Blackthorn, consorting with the enemy. The council will be most disappointed to learn of your treachery." Gabriel recognized the voice despite its distortion. "Magistrate Thornfield, I should have known your convenient appearance at the battlefield was no coincidence. The council suspected your loyalties might be compromised," Thornfield replied, signaling his followers to spread out around the glade. "Your reluctance to resume hunting, your questions about the Great Purge. They sent me to confirm their suspicions, and it appears they were correct. The legendary wolf slayer has become wolf sympathizer." Fenrir had shifted his position subtly, placing himself between the hidden chamber entrance and the advancing Light Society members. "These humans are not what they seem, Gabriel," he said quietly. "Look beyond the masks. See what lies beneath." Gabriel narrowed his eyes, studying the approaching figures with the heightened perception that had made him such an effective hunter. Something about their movements seemed wrong, too fluid, almost predatory despite their human appearance, and beneath the silver masks, their eyes reflected the sunlight in a way no human eyes should. "The Silvered Ones," Gabriel breathed, the legends suddenly taking physical form before him. "They've already breached the barriers." "Not fully," Fenrir corrected. "These are merely vessels, humans whose minds have been consumed and bodies occupied. The true Silvered Ones remain imprisoned, but their influence grows stronger as the blood moon approaches." Thornfield laughed, the sound unnaturally high-pitched. "Clever wolf. Yes, we serve the Silvered Ones, as all lesser creatures should. They offer power beyond mortal comprehension to those wise enough to recognize their superiority." "They offer nothing but consumption," Fenrir growled. "Once freed, they will devour every living soul, starting with their so-called servants." Gabriel's mind raced, evaluating options with the strategic precision that had kept him alive through countless hunts. 8 masked figures surrounding them, the hidden chamber at their backs, the pack approaching, but not yet arrived. "What is your plan, Wolf?" he asked Fenrir, surprising himself with the lack of hostility in the question. "Protect the chamber at all costs," Fenrir replied. "It contains artifacts necessary for the binding ritual during the blood moon. If they're destroyed, all hope is lost." Gabriel made his decision in that moment, though whether guided by reason or instinct he couldn't say. He drew his silver blade but flipped it in his hand, offering the hilt to Fenrir. "Silver harms you more than them," he said. "I'll use other weapons." Fenrir's eyes widened slightly at the gesture, recognizing its significance. A hunter offering his silver blade to a wolf was unprecedented, a complete violation of guild code. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. "I cannot wield silver directly, but there are other ways to use it." The Alpha turned toward the advancing masked figures. "Your pack will die screaming, Blackthorn, and the wolf within you will be the first we consume once the barriers fall," Thornfield called, raising a hand to signal the attack. Before the command could be completed, Gabriel drew his crossbow and fired a silver bolt with unerring accuracy, striking the magistrate's outstretched hand. The silver pierced flesh, but instead of blood, a silver-black ichor oozed from the wound. Thornfield's scream held nothing human, a sound of pure alien fury that sent birds exploding from nearby trees in panic. "You'll die for that, half-breed," Thornfield hissed, voice distorting further as whatever controlled him responded to the silver's touch. "Attack!" Fenrir roared, his voice carrying the Alpha's command that rippled through the forest like a physical force. From the trees surrounding the glade, wolves appeared, launching themselves at the Light Society members with coordinated precision. The battle erupted into chaos, silver weapons clashing against tooth and claw, inhuman shrieks mixing with wolf growls in a cacophony of combat. Gabriel found himself fighting back-to-back with Fenrir, centuries of enmity momentarily set aside in the face of a greater threat. The hunter used his crossbow to pin attackers at a distance, while Fenrir engaged in close combat, his partially shifted form, a hybrid of man and wolf, moving with lethal grace. As the fight intensified, Gabriel felt something awakening within him, a response to the battle that transcended his hunting training. His senses sharpened beyond normal human capacity, smells and sounds becoming almost overwhelming in their clarity. His muscles responded with speed that surprised even him, allowing him to dodge attacks that should have connected. Most disturbing was the rage that built within his chest, a primal fury unlike anything he'd experienced before. It clawed at his insides, demanding release, pushing against the boundaries of his human form, as if something within him sought freedom. "Control it!" Fenrir called, somehow sensing Gabriel's internal struggle, even while engaged with two attackers. "The first shift must be voluntary, or it will consume you." Shift. The word echoed through Gabriel's consciousness, naming the transformation his body sought. Impossible. He was human. Hunter. Killer of wolf-kind. Half-wolf, a voice whispered within him. Blood of two worlds. A scream of warning from one of the pack wolves drew Gabriel's attention. 3 masked figures had broken through the defensive line, heading directly for the hidden chamber. Fenrir was pinned down, fighting the magistrate and another attacker, unable to intercept them. Without conscious thought, Gabriel launched himself across the glade, covering ground with inhuman speed. He intercepted the first attacker with a flying tackle, both of them crashing to the ground in a tangle of limbs. The silver mask cracked upon impact, revealing not a human face beneath, but something that approximated humanity only in the broadest sense. Skin too smooth, features too symmetrical, and eyes entirely silver without pupil or iris. The creature hissed at him, displaying rows of needle-like teeth. "We taste your bloodline, halfling. The covenant runs strong in you, the blood of both worlds. You could join us, become more than either human or wolf." Gabriel answered with his hunting knife across the thing's throat, the silver blade causing the skin to sizzle and blacken upon contact. The creature thrashed beneath him, its dying screech cutting off as silver-black ichor poured from the wound. Rising to face the remaining 2 attackers, Gabriel felt the internal pressure building to unbearable levels. His vision blurred, doubled, shifted between normal human sight and something that perceived beyond the visible spectrum. His bones ached as if ready to break and reform. His skin felt too tight, too restrictive. "You cannot fight what you are forever, Hunter," one of the masked figures taunted, circling him with unnatural grace. "The wolf in your blood demands freedom. Surrender to it and die as the mongrel you truly are." The words struck deeper than any blade could have, piercing the carefully constructed identity Gabriel had maintained for decades. Hunter, protector of humanity, slayer of monsters, half-wolf, kin-killer, denier of his own blood. The conflict threatened to tear him apart from within, the first shift hovering just beyond conscious control. If he surrendered to it now, untrained and unprepared, it could destroy his mind even if his body survived the transformation. A flash of silver caught his peripheral vision. The wooden amulet Evelyn had given him, fallen from his pocket during the battle, now glowing with that same silver-blue light. Gabriel dove for it instinctively, his fingers closing around the carved wood, just as one of the attackers lunged for him. The moment his skin contacted the amulet, everything changed. The internal pressure stabilized, not disappearing, but becoming manageable, controlled. His senses remained heightened, but no longer threatened to overwhelm him. Most importantly, his mind cleared of the confusion that had nearly paralyzed him. Gabriel rose to face his attackers with new resolve, the amulet clutched in one hand, his silver knife in the other. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, no longer fighting his enhanced reflexes, but embracing them. "I am Gabriel Blackthorn," he growled, his voice deeper than normal, resonating with something not entirely human. "Son of Miranda Blackthorn and—" He hesitated only briefly before accepting the truth he could no longer deny. "And Alaric Moonshadow of the Moon Silver Pack. I stand between worlds, and I will not allow either to fall." The declaration seemed to carry power beyond the words themselves. The amulet flared brightly, its light extending outward to surround Gabriel in a protective aura. The masked attackers hesitated, clearly sensing the shift in energies. Taking advantage of their momentary uncertainty, Gabriel attacked with coordinated precision, striking vulnerable points with the silver knife while maintaining the protective aura around himself. His body moved with perfect efficiency, as if 2 lifetimes' worth of combat knowledge had suddenly integrated, the disciplined techniques of a hunter merging with the instinctual prowess of a wolf. Across the glade, Fenrir had gained the upper hand against the magistrate, forcing the possessed human to his knees. The Alpha glanced toward Gabriel, eyes widening at the silver-blue aura surrounding him. "The covenant awakens in your blood," Fenrir called out. "Accept it fully, Gabriel. Complete the connection." The amulet pulsed in Gabriel's hand, responding to Fenrir's words. Instinctively, Gabriel pressed it against his chest, directly over his heart. The carved symbols seemed to sink into his flesh, not physically but energetically, their ancient power flowing into his bloodstream. Knowledge flooded his consciousness, memories not his own, but accessible through blood connection. The ancient covenant between hunter and wolf, formed during the First Age to imprison the Silvered Ones. The ritual bindings renewed with each generation through sacred unions between the bloodlines. The deliberate campaign to sever those connections, orchestrated over centuries by the partially freed consciousness of the imprisoned beings. Most shocking of all came the truth of his parentage, not as Fenrir had described it, but far more complex. His father had indeed been Alaric Moonshadow, Fenrir's blood brother, but not simply a wolf alpha. Alaric had been the product of a sacred union himself, carrying both hunter and wolf bloodlines, making Gabriel not half-wolf, but something far more rare, a triple bloodline descendant, carrying the covenant in its most potent form. This was why the Hunters Guild had taken such pains to hide his heritage, why the Light Society sought his blood above all others. He was not merely a key to the prison of the Silvered Ones, he was potentially their greatest jailer or their ultimate liberator. The remaining masked attackers sensed the change in Gabriel, the awakening of covenant power within his blood. They abandoned all pretense of human movement, bodies contorting in ways that defied natural law as they launched themselves toward him in desperate attack. Gabriel met them with newfound power flowing through his veins. The silver knife in his hand blazed with the same silver-blue energy that surrounded him, cutting through their defenses as if they were mist. One fell, then the other, their possessed forms dissolving into puddles of silver-black ichor upon death. Across the glade, Fenrir had dispatched the magistrate with similar finality. The wolves of the pack had overcome the remaining attackers, though not without casualties. 3 wolves lay motionless on the blood-soaked ground, their sacrifice ensuring the safety of the hidden chamber and its precious contents. In the sudden silence following battle, Gabriel and Fenrir faced each other across the stone circle, both wounded but standing, both forever changed by the truths revealed this day. "You knew," Gabriel said, not a question, but an accusation. "You knew what I truly was, beyond simply wolf blood." Fenrir nodded, his expression solemn. "I suspected when I first saw you 25 years ago. I confirmed it when I allowed you to believe you'd killed me. The silver should have burned through my heart in seconds, yet it merely weakened me because I, too, carry mixed blood. Not to your degree, but enough to survive what should have been fatal." Gabriel looked down at his hands, the silver knife still clutched in one, the other marked where the amulet's symbols had temporarily imprinted on his palm. "Why hide the truth for so long? Why not seek me out years ago?" "Because you weren't ready," Fenrir replied. "The conditioning of the Hunters Guild ran too deep. You would have rejected the truth, possibly destroyed yourself in the process. You needed time to develop doubts, to question the narrative you'd been fed since childhood." Gabriel couldn't deny the accuracy of this assessment. Even now, part of him wanted to reject everything he'd learned, to cling to the simpler identity of hunter rather than face the complex reality of his heritage. "And now?" he asked, meeting Fenrir's steady gaze. "What happens now that I know?" "Now you face the most important decision of your life," Fenrir said, gesturing toward the hidden chamber. "Descend with me into the sacred vault. Learn the full truth of the covenant, of your bloodline's purpose, then decide whether to embrace your destiny or walk away from it." Gabriel looked toward the chamber entrance, still open and glowing with that uncanny silver-blue light. Beyond it lay answers to questions he hadn't known to ask, truths that would forever alter his understanding of himself and the world. He thought of Evelyn Silverwood, the village healer who had known far more than she revealed. Of Raiden, the wounded wolf who had recognized something in Gabriel that he hadn't recognized in himself. Of his mother, Miranda, who had hidden his true nature to protect him from those who would exploit or destroy him. Most of all, he thought of the two worlds he had inhabited without fully belonging to either, the human settlements he had protected and the wolf packs he had hunted. Both now threatened by something that predated their ancient feud, something that had engineered their mutual hatred to serve its own escape. The blood moon approached, 3 weeks until ancient barriers weakened, 3 weeks to prepare for a ritual that might strengthen those barriers or shatter them completely, depending on the choices he made. Gabriel Blackthorn, son of two worlds and inheritor of an ancient covenant, took his first step toward the hidden chamber, toward a truth that had waited 25 years to be acknowledged, toward a destiny written in the most primal magic of blood and moon and silver. Behind him, the wolves of the Moon Silver Pack gathered, witnessing the return of one they had believed lost forever. Before him, Fenrir Bloodmoon extended a hand in greeting, not as enemy, but as kin, as fellow guardian of a secret older than civilization itself. The choice, once made, could never be unmade. The path, once taken, would forever alter the course of two worlds and the ancient darkness that threatened to consume them both. The ancient vault beneath the sacred glade stretched impossibly deep into the earth, descending far beyond what natural formation could explain. Runes carved into stone walls pulsed with silver-blue light, casting elongated shadows as Gabriel and Fenrir descended the winding staircase. Neither spoke, the weight of revelation hanging between them like an unsheathed blade. At Gabriel's throat, the wooden amulet continued to glow, responding to the energies of this sacred place. Each step deeper intensified the strange awareness awakening in his blood, the covenant magic stirring after decades of dormancy. His enhanced senses registered details no human could perceive, the subtle variations in air currents that spoke of hidden chambers beyond the main passage, the faint heartbeats of small creatures living within the stone walls, the lingering scent memories of generations who had walked this path before. "How far down does this go?" Gabriel finally asked, his voice echoing strangely in the enclosed space, as if the very stones absorbed and transformed the sound. "To the beginning," Fenrir replied cryptically, his gray eyes reflecting the runelight. "To the place where it all started, when the world was young and the barriers between realms were thin." After what seemed like hours of descent, the stairway opened into a vast circular chamber that defied all logic. The ceiling arched impossibly high, disappearing into shadows despite being hundreds of feet underground. At the chamber's center stood a perfect circle of 13 monoliths, each twice the height of a man and covered in runes more complex than those in the passage. Between the stones, the floor bore an intricate pattern inlaid with what appeared to be silver, forming a complex web of interconnected symbols. Most striking of all was the altar at the center of the stone circle, a rectangular block of obsidian so black it seemed to devour light rather than reflect it. Upon its polished surface rested a single object, a dagger with a blade of pure translucent silver and a hilt of intertwined bone and wood, wrapped in leather, darkened by centuries of handling. "The binding blade," Fenrir said, approaching the altar with reverence, "forged from the first silver mined from these mountains, tempered with the blood of both human and wolf, bound with magic now forgotten." Gabriel followed cautiously, instinct warning him of immense power contained within the simple weapon. "This is what imprisoned the silvered ones." "One of 3 keys," Fenrir corrected. "The blade, the blood, and the ritual performed during celestial alignment. All three must come together to strengthen the barriers during the blood moon. Gabriel studied the chamber more carefully, noticing details his enhanced perception revealed. The silver inlay in the floor wasn't static, but seemed to flow like liquid metal beneath a glass surface. The air itself carried a charge similar to the moments before a lightning strike. Most disturbing was the sensation of being watched by countless unseen eyes, as if the chamber existed in multiple places simultaneously. "What exactly are these silvered ones?" Gabriel asked, circling the altar while maintaining a respectful distance. The guild records mentioned them only as ancient myths, demons from before recorded history. Fenrir's expression darkened. "They are not myths, nor demons in the religious sense. They existed before humans walked upright, before wolves developed the shift, entities of pure energy that learned to take physical form by consuming the life essence of other beings." The Alpha moved to one of the monoliths, placing his palm against the carved surface. The runes responded to his touch, glowing more intensely and rearranging themselves into new patterns. An image formed within the stone like a window opening onto another time, a primeval landscape where twisted figures of silvery light moved with terrifying grace, leaving nothing but desiccated husks in their wake. "They consumed without limit," Fenrir continued, his voice taking on the cadence of an ancient tale passed through generations. "Plants withered at their touch. Animals fell dead in their path. Early humans were harvested like wheat, their life force drained to feed the silvered ones' insatiable hunger." The image shifted, showing primitive humans and what appeared to be early wolf-kind fighting side by side against the silver beings. "Our ancestors formed an alliance out of desperate need," Fenrir explained. "The first hunters, humans who had developed specialized skills to protect their tribes. The first shifters, wolves who had evolved the ability to take human form. Together, they discovered that their combined blood carried a unique power, the ability to bind the silvered ones." Gabriel watched the images with growing understanding. "The original covenant." "Yes," Fenrir nodded. "A sacred pact sealed in blood and magic. 7 hunter bloodlines and 7 wolf bloodlines, their combined strength creating a prison that is held for millennia." The stone images showed a ritual circle similar to the one they now stood within, where humans and wolf shifters combined their blood with silver to forge the binding blade. The weapon glowed with unearthly light as they used it to create tears in reality itself, forcing the silvered ones into a space between realms, then sealing the breach with blood sacrifice. "But prisons can weaken over time," Gabriel said, understanding dawning, "and prisoners learn the weaknesses of their cells." "Precisely," Fenrir confirmed. "Every century, during the blood moon, the barriers thin naturally. The ritual must be performed again, the bindings renewed with fresh blood from both covenant lines." Gabriel approached another monolith, drawn by an inexplicable familiarity. When his fingers touched the stone, new images formed. More recent scenes showing humans in guild attire slaughtering wolf packs, followed by wolves retaliating against human settlements. Centuries of conflict compressed into moments, each escalation driving the ancestral bloodlines further apart. "The silvered ones have been influencing us," Gabriel realized, watching the pattern of orchestrated hatred unfold across generations, turning us against each other to prevent the covenant renewal. "Their consciousness reaches through the weakening barriers," Fenrir explained. "They whisper to susceptible minds, plant seeds of hatred, manipulate those with power. For centuries they've worked to eliminate the bloodlines that could maintain their prison." Gabriel's hand dropped from the monolith as a chilling thought occurred. The Hunters Guild inner circle, the silvered hand, they've been compromised. Fenrir's eyes flashed momentarily to wolf gold, as have certain wolf alphas throughout history. Any leader who advocated total extermination rather than cautious defense likely served the silvered one's purpose, knowingly or not. The implications staggered Gabriel. The Great Purge 25 years ago, the coordinated attacks on wolf packs that had nearly eliminated the Moon Silver bloodline, had been orchestrated by the Guild's inner circle. The very mission that had defined his early career as a hunter had served an ancient evil's escape plan. "How many Covenant bloodlines remain?" Gabriel asked, though he feared the answer. "Among wolves, only the Moon Silverpack carries pure Covenant blood, and we number barely 20 after decades of hiding," Fenrir admitted. "Among humans, the hunter bloodlines have been systematically eliminated or diluted, often by the guild itself under the guise of retiring, distinguished hunters." Gabriel thought of his mother, executed by the guild when they suspected her connection to the Covenant. "And me? You said I carry triple bloodline." "The rarest combination," Fenrir confirmed. "Your father Alaric was born of a sacred union between hunter and wolf, then mated with your mother, a direct descendant of the original hunter covenant. You carry all three bloodlines in perfect balance: hunter, wolf, and the mixed blood of the guardians." Gabriel processed this revelation, understanding now why he had never fully belonged in either world. "That's why the Light Society wants my blood, to break the final seal." "Or to strengthen it," Fenrir corrected. "Your blood is power, Gabriel. In the wrong hands, it could shatter the barriers completely. But used properly, during the blood moon ritual, it could reinforce them for another century." The enormity of his position struck Gabriel with physical force. The fate of both human and wolfkind rested on his shoulders, on choices he would make in the coming weeks. A burden he had never asked for, born from a heritage he had spent decades denying. "And if I refuse?" he asked, needing to understand all options. "If I walk away from this covenant, this destiny?" Fenrir's expression remained neutral, though disappointment flickered briefly in his eyes. "Then the barriers fail during the blood moon. The silvered ones break free, and everything that lives dies." The blunt assessment hung in the sacred chamber, unadorned truth without manipulation. Gabriel appreciated that Fenrir didn't attempt to coerce him with emotional appeals or false promises. The choice was his alone, with consequences beyond comprehension. Before Gabriel could respond, a disturbance rippled through the chamber. The silver inlay in the floor pulsed erratically, the runes on the monoliths flickering as if under attack. Something pressed against the very fabric of this sacred space, testing boundaries, searching for weakness. "They sense us," Fenrir growled, moving protectively toward the altar. "The ritual blade draws their attention, especially in your presence. Your awakening blood calls to them across the barriers." Gabriel felt it now, a cold, alien awareness brushing against his consciousness like fingers of ice trailing down his spine. A hunger so vast it defied comprehension, focused suddenly and completely on him. Something ancient recognized the covenant in his blood, desired it, feared it. The pressure intensified, the air in the chamber growing thick and difficult to breathe. The silver inlay began to bubble and twist, forming unnatural patterns that hurt the eyes to follow. A high-pitched keening filled the space, just beyond the threshold of normal human hearing, but painfully clear to Gabriel's enhanced senses. "We need to leave," Fenrir ordered, grabbing the ritual blade from the altar and securing it within his clothing. "The chamber's protections are holding, but they know we're here now. They'll send more vessels." Gabriel didn't argue, already moving toward the stairway. The alien presence had triggered something primal within him, an instinctive fear deeper than rational thought. Whatever pressed against the barriers between realms was fundamentally wrong, an abomination against the natural order. As they ascended the stairway, the pressure gradually diminished, though Gabriel could still feel that cold awareness tracking him, measuring him, calculating. The silvered ones had waited centuries for freedom. They could afford patience when their prey was marked. When they emerged into the sacred glade, the sun had begun its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the clearing. The wolves of Fenrir's pack had removed their fallen comrades and cleared signs of battle, maintaining the sanctity of the sacred space. Several remained on guard around the perimeter, alert for any return of the Light Society forces. "What now?" Gabriel asked, still processing everything he had learned in the vault below. "Now we prepare you," Fenrir replied, securing the hidden entrance to the chamber with a series of complex gestures that sealed it from view. "You've accepted the covenant in your blood, but your wolf remains dormant. You must learn to shift, to access all aspects of your heritage before the blood moon. Gabriel touched the amulet at his throat, feeling its resonance with the newly awakened power in his veins. And if the Light Society attacks again, they'll be hunting both of us now. They've always hunted us, Fenrir said with grim resignation. But yes, they'll redouble their efforts now that they know you've discovered your true nature. We must reach the sanctuary of Iron Peak before nightfall. The name stirred something in Gabriel's memory, a location mentioned in guild records but never precisely mapped. The hidden stronghold of the Moon Silverpack. I thought it was destroyed in the Great Purge. The guild found one of our settlements, Fenrir corrected, a decoy we maintained for such contingencies. The true Iron Peak remains hidden, protected by magic older than human memory. As they prepared to depart, a wolf approached from the forest edge, a sleek female with silver-gray fur and intelligent amber eyes. She circled Gabriel once, scenting him carefully before shifting to human form with the same fluid grace Fenrir had demonstrated earlier. The woman who stood before them appeared to be in her mid-40s, with silver-streaked dark hair and features that struck Gabriel with immediate recognition. Evelyn Silverwood, the village healer from Ravenhold. "You found him," she said to Fenrir, her tone suggesting this was the continuation of a much longer conversation. "And he has accepted the First Awakening." Fenrir nodded. "The covenant stirs in his blood. He knows the truth, or most of it." Evelyn turned her penetrating gaze to Gabriel, those familiar amber eyes now holding new significance. "And what truth is that, Hunter? What have you learned about yourself today?" Gabriel studied the woman who had tended Raiden, who had performed blood magic to connect them, who had given him the amulet that led him to this place. Her presence here raised questions he should have asked sooner. "You're not merely a village healer," he stated, connecting pieces of a complex puzzle. "You're Moon Silverpack. You've been watching me." "For many years," Evelyn confirmed without apology, "since Fenrir recognized you during your confrontation 25 years ago. Someone needed to ensure you survived long enough to discover your heritage." Gabriel's mind raced with implications. Raiden's appearance in Ravenhold. That wasn't coincidence. "A calculated risk," Fenrir interjected. "We needed to awaken your dormant abilities before the blood moon. The healing bond was the safest method to begin the process without triggering an uncontrolled first shift." The manipulation should have angered Gabriel, yet he found himself appreciating the careful planning that had led to this moment. Had they approached him directly with wild claims about his heritage, he would have rejected them outright. Instead, they had created circumstances that allowed him to discover the truth through his own experiences. "And now?" he asked, looking between Fenrir and Evelyn. "What haven't you told me yet?" Evelyn exchanged a meaningful glance with Fenrir before responding. "The ritual to reinforce the barriers requires more than just your blood, Gabriel. It requires union between the bloodlines, a sacred bonding that will permanently link Covenant Hunter and Covenant Wolf." Understanding dawned. "A mate bond." "Yes," Fenrir confirmed. "The original covenant was sealed through 7 such unions. With the bloodline so diminished, a single powerful bonding might suffice, but it must be genuine. Magic of this magnitude cannot be forced or falsified." Gabriel looked at Evelyn with new awareness. Her role in Ravenhold suddenly made perfect sense, not just observing him, but evaluating his potential as a mate for someone within the pack, perhaps even herself. "Is that why you helped me?" he asked her directly. "To determine if I was worthy of bonding with a wolf of covenant blood?" A hint of amusement crossed Evelyn's features. "Partially, though you've misinterpreted the specifics. I am indeed of the covenant bloodline, but I am not your intended mate. That choice remains yours to make, from among those few remaining who carry pure covenant blood." Before Gabriel could respond, distant howls echoed through the forest, warning calls from the pack's scouts. Fenrir tensed, immediately alert to the specific pattern of communication. "Hunters," he translated grimly. "At least 20, approaching from the north. Silver weapons and tracking hounds. They've picked up our trail faster than anticipated." Gabriel recognized the tactics immediately. The Guild's elite hunting party. They're deployed only for the most dangerous targets. Someone with significant influence has marked us for death." Evelyn's expression hardened. "The Silvered Ones work quickly. We must reach Iron Peak before they corner us." Fenrir nodded agreement, already shifting partially to enhance his senses, his eyes glowing gold as he scanned the surrounding forest. "Gabriel cannot travel as wolf yet, and in human form he cannot match our pace through wilderness." "I'll manage," Gabriel insisted, though he knew the Alpha spoke truth. Even with his enhanced abilities, he couldn't match a wolf's speed and endurance through difficult terrain. Evelyn approached him, her expression resolute. "There is another way, though it carries risk. I can trigger a partial awakening of your wolf aspects, not a full shift, but enough to enhance your physical capabilities beyond human limitations." Gabriel hesitated only briefly. The sound of hunting horns now carried through the forest, the Guild's signal to spread out and encircle their prey. Time had run out for deliberation. "Do it," he commanded, meeting her gaze with equal resolve. Without further discussion, Evelyn placed her palm against Gabriel's chest, directly over his heart. Her eyes shifted fully to Wolf Amber as she spoke words in an ancient language that resonated with something primal in Gabriel's blood. The amulet at his throat flared brightly, its carved symbols aligning with the temporary markings still visible on his palm from his earlier communion with it. Power surged through Gabriel's body, raw and primal. Not the chaotic pressure that had threatened to overwhelm him during battle, but a controlled awakening of dormant abilities. His senses sharpened beyond even their previous enhancement. Muscles tensed and strengthened as if preparing for transformation, but stopping just short of the actual shift. Most noticeable was the change in his vision, colors shifting toward blues and grays, while movement became extraordinarily clear, even in deep shadow. Sense carried information his conscious mind couldn't fully process, but his instincts understood perfectly. The number of hunters pursuing them, the types of weapons they carried, the fear sweat that betrayed their understanding of what they hunted. "Remarkable," Evelyn murmured, stepping back to observe the changes. "Your blood accepts the awakening more readily than any I've seen. The triple bloodline manifests strongly." Gabriel flexed his hands, feeling new strength coursing through them. His entire body hummed with energy, coiled and ready for release. "How long will this last?" "Until sunrise," Fenrir answered, already moving toward the eastern edge of the glade. "By then, we'll either have reached Iron Peak or died trying. Come, follow our path exactly." The Alpha shifted fully to wolf form, his massive black shape moving with liquid grace into the forest shadows. Evelyn followed suit, her silver-gray form darting after him. The remaining pack members fell into formation around them, creating a protective perimeter with Gabriel at the center. Gabriel took a deep breath, allowing his newly enhanced senses to fully activate, then launched himself after the wolves. His body responded with speed and agility beyond anything he had experienced, easily navigating obstacles that would have challenged him before. He found himself anticipating the terrain before seeing it, instinct guiding his movements with predatory efficiency. They moved through the whispering woods like shadows, following paths invisible to human eyes but clear to wolf senses. The hunting party pursued doggedly, but the wolves' intimate knowledge of the forest gave them advantage enough to maintain their lead. Hours passed in relentless motion, the distance between hunters and hunted remaining relatively stable. As twilight descended, they reached the eastern boundary of the Whispering Woods, where the ancient forest gave way to the foothills of the northern mountains. Here the terrain grew steeper, rockier, more treacherous to navigate at speed. Yet Gabriel found his partially awakened wolf aspects perfectly suited to the challenge, his enhanced strength and reflexes compensating for the difficult conditions. The pack altered formation as they ascended into the mountains, taking advantage of narrow passes and hidden trails that the pursuing hunters would struggle to follow. Twice they doubled back along rocky ridgelines where their scent wouldn't hold, creating false trails to confuse the tracking hounds. Night had fully fallen by the time they crested a particularly steep ridge and paused to assess their progress. Gabriel's partially enhanced vision allowed him to see the hunting party far below, torches moving through the foothills like fireflies, their pattern indicating confusion as the trails split and scattered. "They've lost our direct scent," Fenrir observed, having shifted briefly to human form to communicate more effectively. "They'll continue searching, but their efficiency is compromised." Gabriel nodded, taking the opportunity to catch his breath. Despite his enhanced stamina, hours of relentless travel through difficult terrain had taken their toll. "How much farther to Iron Peak?" "We've already entered its outer boundaries," Evelyn answered, also in human form now. She gestured toward the towering mountains ahead, their peaks lost in low-hanging clouds. "The sanctuary lies within that central massif, protected by magic that hides it from those who don't carry pack blood." As if to confirm her words, Gabriel noticed a strange distortion in the air ahead, like heat waves rising from sun-baked stone, except these moved horizontally across the mountain face. Beyond the distortion, the mountain appeared solid and impassable, yet the wolves moved toward it with absolute confidence. A veil, Gabriel realized, an illusion to conceal the true path. "More than illusion," Fenrir corrected, "a barrier that physically repels those not of covenant blood. It will recognize you, but the transition may be uncomfortable for one experiencing it the first time." They resumed their journey, approaching the wavering distortion that stretched across the apparent rock face. The wolves passed through it without hesitation, their forms seeming to ripple momentarily before disappearing. Gabriel followed, steeling himself for whatever sensation awaited. The moment he contacted the barrier, his entire body buzzed as if struck by lightning. Every hair stood on end, his skin prickling with energy that tested him, measured him, judged the composition of his blood with ancient magic that cared nothing for conscious identity. For a terrible moment, he feared rejection, that his lifetime denying his wolf heritage had somehow altered him too fundamentally to be recognized as covenant kin. Then the barrier yielded, accepting him with a sensation like passing through a waterfall of pure energy. Gabriel emerged on the other side to a sight that stole what little breath remained in his lungs. Iron Peak revealed its true nature, not a solid mountain, but a massive inhabited caldera, hidden within the seemingly impassable peaks. A vast settlement spread across the inner slopes, structures of stone and wood built in perfect harmony with the natural contours of the land. Terraced gardens and orchards created rings of vegetation at different elevations. Waterfalls cascaded from higher points to collect in crystalline pools below. At the caldera's center stood a fortress of dark stone and silver, its towers reaching toward the star-filled sky above the open crater. Most remarkable was the integration of human and wolf existence. In the light of countless torches and magical illumination, Gabriel could see wolves and humans moving together through the settlement. Some in wolf form, some in human shape, others in partial transformation like nothing he had witnessed before. Wolves walking upright with hands instead of paws, humans with wolf features integrated seamlessly into their forms. "Welcome to Iron Peak," Fenrir said, obvious pride in his voice. "The last true sanctuary of the Covenant, where the ancient alliance between human and wolf never died." Gabriel struggled to reconcile what he witnessed with everything he had been taught about wolfkind. The guild portrayed them as savage beasts barely contained by their human forms, driven by bloodlust and pack hierarchy. Yet here before him stood a civilization of remarkable sophistication, where both aspects of dual nature existed in apparent harmony. "How many live here?" he asked, still absorbing the scale of the hidden settlement. "Nearly 400, Evelyn answered. "The survivors of multiple packs who carried covenant blood, gathered here after the Great Purge. Some are mixed bloodlines like yourself, though none carry the triple heritage you possess." As they descended into the settlement proper, residents emerged from homes and communal spaces to witness their arrival. Word of their coming had clearly preceded them, likely communicated through pack bonds Gabriel was only beginning to understand. Faces showed a mixture of curiosity, hope, and wariness as they assessed the legendary hunter now walking among them. Gabriel felt their scrutiny like physical contact against his enhanced senses. These people had every reason to hate him, to fear him. He had hunted their kind for decades, had participated in the slaughter that had driven them into hiding. Yet he detected no immediate hostility, only cautious evaluation. They proceeded through winding pathways toward the central fortress, the crowd parting respectfully before Fenrir while maintaining a careful distance from Gabriel. Children, some fully human in appearance, others showing subtle wolf characteristics, watched with undisguised fascination from doorways and windows, held back by protective parents. At the fortress entrance stood a delegation of what Gabriel recognized as pack leaders, men and women of various ages, all carrying themselves with the unmistakable authority of alphas. 7 in total, they formed a semicircle before the massive silver-inlaid doors, clearly awaiting formal introduction to the unexpected guest. Fenrir halted before them, inclining his head in respectful acknowledgement rather than submission. "Honored alphas of the allied packs, I present Gabriel Blackthorn, son of Alaric Moonshadow, and Miranda Blackthorn, carrier of Triple Covenant blood and rightful heir to both Hunter and Wolf legacies." A murmur ran through the assembled leaders, their expressions ranging from disbelief to cautious hope. One stepped forward, an elderly woman with white hair and penetrating blue eyes that held the wisdom of extreme age. "The Butcher of Moonsilver Pack returns as savior?" she questioned, her tone more curious than accusatory. "The wheel of fate turns in strange patterns indeed." "Elder Selene speaks truth," added another alpha, a broad-shouldered man with flame-red hair and a face scarred from countless battles. "This hunter has more wolf blood on his hands than any living human. How can we trust him with our most sacred covenant?" Gabriel met their gazes steadily, neither denying the accusations nor offering empty apologies. "I cannot undo the past," he acknowledged, his voice carrying clearly in the hush that had fallen. "I acted according to beliefs I now recognize as lies, manipulations orchestrated by enemies of both our kinds. I offer no excuses, only the truth of who and what I am now discovered to be." The white-haired Elder Selene approached him, seemingly unafraid despite his reputation. She circled him slowly, scenting the air in a manner more wolf than human. "The covenant runs strong in him," she announced after completing her assessment. "Stronger than any I have witnessed in 7 generations. The triple bloodline manifests purely." Her ancient eyes fixed on Gabriel with unnerving intensity. "But blood alone is not enough. The heart must align with destiny, or even the strongest bloodline becomes merely potential without purpose." "My heart remains my own," Gabriel responded firmly, "as does my choice in how I use the heritage I've discovered. I stand before you not as servant or master, but as one who seeks truth after a lifetime of deception." The gathered alphas exchanged glances, silent communication passing between them in the subtle language of pack bonds. Finally, Elder Selene nodded decisively. "The blood moon approaches," she declared. "We have little time for lengthy debate. Gabriel Blackthorn will be granted sanctuary within Iron Peak, while the Council determines his role in the coming ritual. Until then, he remains under Fenrir's protection and responsibility." The other alphas signaled their agreement, though several did so with obvious reservation. The massive silver doors swung open, revealing the interior of the fortress, a soaring central hall illuminated by crystalline structures that captured and amplified moonlight from the open caldera above. As Gabriel followed Fenrir into this sanctuary that represented everything he had once sworn to destroy, he felt the weight of centuries pressing upon him. The covenant in his blood responded to this place, to the concentrated presence of others who shared his heritage. The partial awakening Evelyn had triggered continued to reshape his perception, allowing him to sense the complex web of connections between pack members, the hierarchies and bonds that defined their society. He had begun this day as Gabriel Blackthorn, legendary wolf hunter with a lifetime of certainty about his purpose and place in the world. He would end it as something far more complex, a living bridge between ancient enemies, the embodiment of a covenant older than civilization, and possibly the final hope against an evil that threatened to consume all life. The silver doors closed behind them with the finality of a choice that could never be unmade. Ahead lay revelations that would further challenge everything Gabriel had believed about himself and the world. The blood moon approached, and with it, a reckoning centuries in the making. The eastern tower of Iron Peak Fortress offered a panoramic view of both the hidden settlement within the caldera and the treacherous mountains beyond the protective barrier. Gabriel stood at the window of his assigned chambers, watching the first light of dawn illuminate the peaks while casting the valley below in lingering shadow. His partial wolf awakening had faded with sunrise, as Evelyn had predicted, though residual sensory enhancements remained, evidence that something fundamental had changed within him, a door opened that could never fully close again. Sleep had eluded him despite exhaustion. Too many revelations, too many paradigm shifts in a single day. His mind had spent the night hours attempting to reconcile lifelong beliefs with newly discovered truths, a process as painful as it was necessary. A soft knock at the chamber door interrupted his contemplation. "Enter," Gabriel called, not turning from the window. Evelyn Silverwood stepped into the room, carrying a tray with steaming food and what appeared to be medicinal preparations. She had exchanged her simple healer's attire from Ravenhold for clothing, more befitting her true status, finely woven fabric with subtle silver threading that marked her as a high-ranking member of the Moon Silver Pack. "You should eat," she said, setting the tray on a nearby table. "The first awakening depletes the body's resources significantly. You'll need strength for what comes next." Gabriel turned to face her, studying the woman who had monitored him for years without his knowledge. In the clear morning light, he could see the resemblance to his newly discovered wolf lineage, subtle features he shared that had always been attributed to his mother's side. "What exactly comes next, Evelyn?" he asked, approaching the table but making no move toward the food. "Yesterday I discovered my entire life was built on lies. Today I'm expected to embrace a heritage I've spent decades hunting to extinction. The pace of revelation is somewhat overwhelming." A hint of sympathy softened her expression. "The Council has called an emergency conclave for midday. All 7 allied Alpha leaders will be present, along with the remaining Omega representatives. They will determine your role in the coming ritual, assuming you choose to participate." "And if I refuse?" Gabriel asked, though the question held less defiance than simple need for clarity. "Then you leave Iron Peak with your knowledge, but without our protection," Evelyn replied matter-of-factly. "The Light Society and their silvered masters will hunt you relentlessly, knowing your blood is the key to either reinforcing or breaking the barriers completely." She paused, meeting his eyes directly. "And when the blood moon rises in 18 days, we all face the consequences of inadequate preparation." Gabriel nodded, appreciating her honesty. He finally seated himself at the table, sampling the simple but hearty fare: smoked meat, dark bread, and a bitter herbal tea that immediately restored some of his depleted energy. "Tell me about the ritual," he said between bites. "Fenrir mentioned a mate bond is required. I need to understand exactly what that entails." Evelyn took the seat opposite him, her posture reflecting the formal bearing of one accustomed to council proceedings rather than the village healer persona she had maintained in Ravenhold. The original covenant was sealed through 7 sacred unions between hunter and wolf bloodlines, she explained. Each pairing created a blood bond more powerful than ordinary mating, linking their life forces permanently. Their combined essence, freely given and magically bound, created the prison that has held the Silvered Ones for millennia. "And now, with the bloodlines nearly extinct, you need to recreate this bond," Gabriel surmised. "With me and someone carrying pure Wolf Covenant blood." "Yes," Evelyn confirmed. "In the past, multiple pairings would perform the ritual simultaneously. Given our diminished numbers, we must rely on the exceptional strength of your triple bloodline combined with the purest remaining Wolf Covenant carrier." Gabriel frowned. "You speak as if this person has already been identified." Evelyn hesitated briefly, clearly measuring her words. "There are fewer than 10 individuals who carry pure Covenant wolf blood without dilution. Of those, only 3 are compatible with the ritual requirements, unmarked by previous mate bonds, and of appropriate magical resonance with your specific bloodline." "And these 3 candidates?" Gabriel prompted, when she didn't elaborate further. "Will be presented at the council conclave," Evelyn replied diplomatically. "The decision must be made collectively, with consideration for both magical compatibility and personal choice." A forced bond serves neither the ritual nor the individuals involved. Gabriel considered her carefully. You're being deliberately vague, Evelyn. After decades of manipulation, I'd appreciate straightforward answers. Are you one of these candidates? A brief smile touched her lips. No, Gabriel. While I carry covenant blood, I am already bonded, though my mate perished in the Great Purge. The bond transcends physical death. Before Gabriel could press for more specific information, the chamber door opened without preamble. Fenrir entered, now dressed in formal attire that marked his status as Alpha of the Moon Silver Pack, dark clothing with silver embellishments and a pendant bearing the pack's crest. His expression was grave. "The scouts report movement beyond the barrier," he announced without preamble. "The hunting party has been joined by Light Society members. They're performing some sort of ritual at the boundary, attempting to penetrate our defenses." Evelyn rose immediately, concern evident. The barrier has held for centuries against conventional attacks. "This is different," Fenrir replied grimly. "They've brought a prisoner, a wolf with covenant blood. They're using his essence to identify weaknesses in our protection." Gabriel stood as well, instinctively reaching for weapons that had been respectfully but firmly removed upon his arrival at Iron Peak. "Raiden? They recaptured him from Ravenhold?" "No," Fenrir shook his head. "According to our scouts, it's Thorn, Elder Selene's grandson. He disappeared on a scouting mission 3 days ago. We assumed he'd been killed." They kept him alive deliberately, Gabriel realized, tactical assessment overriding emotional response. They need him intact to test the barrier. Evelyn's expression darkened. With covenant blood to guide them and Light Society magic to amplify it, they could eventually find a way through. "How quickly can the council convene?" Gabriel asked, decision crystallizing with the immediate threat. Whatever doubts plagued him about his heritage and future role, he could not stand idle while innocence suffered. "I need to understand our full situation before they breach these defenses." Fenrir's gray eyes assessed Gabriel carefully, noting the shift from reluctant participant to active strategist. "I'll summon them immediately. Elder Selene will want to know her grandson lives, however precariously." As Fenrir departed to arrange the emergency gathering, Gabriel turned back to Evelyn. "I need everything you know about the Light Society's magical capabilities. As a guild hunter, I was aware of their silver-based weaponry, but ritual magic was never disclosed to field operatives." Evelyn nodded, professional efficiency replacing diplomatic caution. "Their magic derives from corrupted covenant knowledge, wolf secrets stolen during the early purges and perverted to serve the Silvered One's agenda. They cannot directly access moon magic as we do, but they can invert and twist it, particularly when they possess a living source." "Like Thorn," Gabriel supplied, mind already formulating potential countermeasures. His decades as a hunter had not been wasted. He understood how to combat magical threats, even if he now found himself on unexpected side of the conflict. "Exactly," Evelyn confirmed. "They'll drain him slowly, maximizing the information they can extract before his inevitable death. With a direct bloodline connection to Elder Selene, who helped establish Iron Peak's protections, he's particularly vulnerable to their techniques." Gabriel paced the chamber, the strategic implications crystallizing. "So we face external attack while preparing for a ritual that requires absolute precision and cannot be rushed. He paused, fixing Evelyn with a direct gaze. "Why not perform the ritual immediately? If my blood is truly the key, why wait for the blood moon?" "Because the barriers exist between realms, not merely physical locations," Evelyn explained. "They can only be accessed when the celestial alignment creates a natural thinning, during the blood moon. Attempting the ritual prematurely would waste our only opportunity." Gabriel absorbed this information with growing resolution. Whether he had sought this responsibility or not, whether his entire life had been built on deception or truth, the immediate crisis demanded action. Lives depended on decisions he would make in the coming hours. Wolf lives he would once have extinguished without hesitation, now revealed as distant kin through blood he had never acknowledged. "Then we need 2 strategies," he decided. one to rescue Thorn before they extract enough information to breach the barrier, and another to prepare properly for the Blood Moon ritual. Both require resources and coordination I don't yet understand. Evelyn studied him with newfound respect. The Council will determine our course of action, but your tactical experience could prove invaluable. Few among us have directly confronted the Light Society and lived to apply those lessons. Before Gabriel could respond, a young wolf entered the chamber, bowing respectfully to Evelyn before addressing them both. The Council has convened in the Great Hall. Alpha Fenrir requests your immediate presence. The Great Hall occupied the central portion of Iron Peak Fortress, a massive circular chamber whose domed ceiling opened to the sky above. Constructed of dark stone inlaid with silver runes similar to those in the Sacred Glade's underground vault, it hummed with ancient power that Gabriel could now perceive with his partially awakened senses. 7 stone chairs arranged in a semicircle dominated the hall's focal point, each carved with symbols representing the allied packs. When Gabriel entered alongside Evelyn, the chamber was already filled with pack representatives. The 7 alpha leaders occupied their respective seats, with Elder Selene at the center position, her age-lined face tight with controlled grief over her grandson's capture. Fenrir stood to her right, while other positions were filled by alphas. Gabriel did not yet know. 4 males and 3 females of varying ages, all carrying themselves with the unmistakable authority of their station. Before the semicircle stood a large circular table of polished obsidian, its surface inscribed with a detailed map of the surrounding territories. Gabriel recognized the craftsmanship immediately, a strategic planning table similar to those used in guild headquarters, but far more sophisticated in its magical enhancement. Currently, it displayed the mountain range surrounding Iron Peak, with glowing points indicating the positions of enemy forces beyond the barrier. Conversation ceased as Gabriel approached, all eyes turning to assess the legendary hunter now walking among them as potential ally rather than mortal enemy. The weight of centuries of conflict hung in the air, generations of mutual hatred not easily dismissed despite the greater threat looming over all. Elder Selene spoke first, her voice carrying surprising strength despite her apparent frailty. Gabriel Blackthorn, once hunter of our kind, now revealed as blood of our blood. You stand before the Council of 7 at a moment unprecedented in our shared history. Gabriel inclined his head respectfully, but maintained direct eye contact, understanding that wolves respected strength even while demanding proper deference. I come seeking neither absolution for past actions nor automatic acceptance based on newly discovered heritage. I offer only what I am, a man with specific skills and knowledge that may serve our mutual survival. A murmur ran through the assembled wolves, some appreciative of his directness, others clearly skeptical of his sudden conversion to their cause. The red-haired alpha, who had questioned him upon arrival, leaned forward in his chair. "Pretty words from a man who has slaughtered dozens of our kind," he challenged. "Why should we trust the butcher of Moon Silverpack when our very sanctuary stands threatened?" "Because I know how they think," Gabriel replied without hesitation. "I trained with the guild's elite hunters, studied their tactics, understand their weaknesses. More importantly, I've seen firsthand how the Light Society operates, their magical techniques, their strategic priorities, their psychological vulnerabilities." Fenrir interjected smoothly. Gabriel's knowledge could prove crucial in rescuing Thorn. The Light Society expects us to cower behind our barriers, not to launch a counterattack with inside knowledge of their methods. Elder Selene's penetrating gaze had not left Gabriel throughout this exchange. "And what do you propose, Hunter Wolf? How would you extract my grandson from those who have made an art of torturing our kind?" Gabriel approached the strategic table, studying the glowing indicators with professional assessment. "Their primary objective is breaching your defenses. Thorn is merely a tool toward that end, valuable only while he provides useful information. They'll have established a ritual perimeter here." He pointed to a specific location where multiple indicators clustered. Standard Light Society protocol places the ritual focus at the center, with concentric rings of protection surrounding it. Their attention will be focused inward, on extracting information from Thorn and applying it to the barrier. The red-haired alpha frowned. "You suggest we attack directly? Our scouts report at least 30 trained hunters, plus Light Society ritual masters. Even with wolf speed and strength, we'd suffer catastrophic losses before reaching the center." "Not a frontal assault," Gabriel corrected, his tactical mind fully engaged now. "A precision extraction, taking advantage of their ritual requirements. Light Society magic operates on strict geometric principles. Their protection focuses on specific vectors, leaving others vulnerable if you understand the pattern." He manipulated the map, zooming in on the enemy encampment. "They'll establish 5 points of silver focus, channeling Thorn's extracted essence through purification chambers before applying it to barrier testing. During certain phases of the ritual, they must expose him directly to moonlight, even during daylight hours, through specialized crystals. That creates our opportunity." The council members exchanged glances, clearly impressed despite their reservations. Gabriel continued, outlining a plan that utilized his intimate knowledge of Light Society weaknesses while leveraging wolf strengths. As he spoke, the initial hostility in the chamber gradually transformed into reluctant respect, even from the most skeptical alphas. When he finished, Elder Celine nodded slowly. "You think as they do, yet apply that thinking to their destruction rather than ours. An interesting transformation, Hunter Wolf." "Necessity often clarifies priorities," Gabriel replied simply. "Whatever my past actions, whatever my future role in your covenant, the immediate threat demands response. Thorn suffers while we debate, and his suffering endangers everyone within these walls." The white-haired elder studied him with those ancient eyes that seemed to perceive beyond physical appearance. After a long moment, she turned to the assembled council. "I propose we accept Gabriel Blackthorn's extraction strategy, with modifications to incorporate our unique capabilities. Those in favor?" 6 of the 7 alphas raised their hands in agreement, with only the red-haired leader abstaining, though even his expression had shifted from outright hostility to cautious consideration. "So decided," Elder Celine declared. "Fenrir will oversee the extraction team, with Gabriel providing tactical guidance from within our barriers. No matter the outcome of this rescue, we must preserve the Covenant bloodline for the coming ritual." Gabriel frowned at this stipulation. "With respect, Elder, I should be part of the extraction team. My knowledge of Light Society protocols can be communicated to Fenrir through your newly awakened pack sense," Elder Celine interrupted firmly. "Your blood is too valuable to risk before the blood moon, especially given your untrained state. Should you fall into enemy hands, all would be lost." Before Gabriel could protest further, the obsidian table suddenly flared with crimson light, the map display distorting momentarily before stabilizing to show new information. The enemy indicators had shifted, forming a precise pentagram pattern with Thorn's position clearly marked at the center. "They've begun the primary extraction ritual," Evelyn announced, her expression grave as she interpreted the magical signatures. "We have less than 6 hours before they obtain enough Covenant essence to potentially breach our barriers." Elder Celine rose from her seat, authority radiating from her diminutive frame. "Prepare the extraction team immediately. The council will reconvene when Thorn is secured, or—" She faltered momentarily, personal concern bleeding through formal command. "Or when we confirm his loss." As the council members dispersed to their assigned tasks, Fenrir approached Gabriel, his expression reflecting both determination and concern. "I need everything you know about Light Society ritual configurations, especially their weaknesses during extraction ceremonies." Gabriel nodded, already mentally cataloging relevant intelligence from his decades as a hunter. "Their power flows through silver conduits established at precise angles, disrupt the geometry, and their magic becomes unstable, potentially explosive. I can show you exactly where to strike for maximum effect with minimal exposure." They moved to a smaller planning room adjacent to the Great Hall, where Gabriel spent the next hour detailing everything he knew about Light Society operations. Fenrir absorbed the information with remarkable efficiency, occasionally asking clarifying questions that revealed his own extensive tactical experience. As they concluded their planning, Fenrir fixed Gabriel with a penetrating gaze. You've provided invaluable intelligence that may save Thorn and protect our sanctuary, yet I sense your frustration at being held back from direct action. I'm not accustomed to sending others into danger while remaining safely distant, Gabriel admitted, particularly when my specialized knowledge could make the difference between success and failure. Your restraint honors you, Fenrir acknowledged, but Elder Selene speaks truth. Your blood carries our last hope against the Silvered Ones. The risk cannot be justified, no matter how valuable your field expertise. Gabriel accepted this assessment with reluctance but understanding. Then succeed, Alpha. Bring Thorn home and prove my intelligence accurate. As Fenrir departed to assemble his extraction team, Gabriel found himself momentarily alone in the planning room, surrounded by maps and tactical displays that represented a conflict he had only recently discovered existed beyond the surface hatred between human and wolf. For decades, he had viewed the world through the narrow lens of hunter versus hunted, good versus evil, clearly delineated by species. Now those certainties had dissolved, replaced by complex truths about manipulated history and ancient threats that transcended simplistic divisions. The door opened quietly, admitting Evelyn once more. The extraction team departs within the hour, she informed him. While they undertake their mission, the Council has requested your presence in the Temple of Convergence. The ritual preparation cannot wait, regardless of the rescue outcome. Temple of Convergence? Gabriel questioned, the unfamiliar term suggesting significance beyond his current knowledge. The sacred space where the Covenant was first established in these mountains, Evelyn explained, where the 7 original pairings formed their blood bonds to create the prison that has held for millennia. It is there you must meet your potential mates and determine compatibility before the blood moon arrives. The moment had come sooner than expected. Beyond tactical planning and immediate crisis management lay the personal implications of his heritage, the mate bond required to complete the ritual, a permanent linking that would bind him to wolfkind forever. These candidates, Gabriel said carefully, will I be given choice in this matter, or is compatibility determined solely by magical resonance? Both elements must align, Evelyn replied. The magic requires specific bloodline resonance, but the bond itself fails without genuine connection between participants. Force or coercion renders the ritual worse than useless. It creates weaknesses in the barrier rather than strengthening it. Gabriel nodded, appreciating the honesty, even as apprehension built within him. Then lead on, Evelyn. Let's meet these potential mates and see what destiny has prepared for the Butcher of Moon Silverpack. The Temple of Convergence lay beneath Iron Peak Fortress, accessed through a spiraling stairway that descended deep into the mountain's heart. Unlike the oppressive darkness of conventional underground structures, this passage glowed with embedded crystals that illuminated the way with soft, silver-blue light reminiscent of moonlight. The air grew warmer rather than colder as they descended, carrying scents of ancient wood, incense, and the distinctive musk of wolf gatherings. The temple draws energy from the Earth's core, Evelyn explained as they walked. Magma flows redirected by the first shifters to create a permanent full moon effect, even during daylight hours. It is one of the few places where covenant magic can be safely practiced between blood moons. After several minutes of descent, the stairway opened into an immense cavern that defied logic with its dimensions. The ceiling arched impossibly high, adorned with crystalline formations that reflected and amplified light from the chamber's center. There, a perfect circle of white stone formed a platform raised slightly above the surrounding floor, inscribed with runes similar to those Gabriel had seen in the Sacred Glade's vault. Most striking was the artificial moon suspended above the white stone circle, a massive sphere of what appeared to be liquid silver held in perfect suspension by unknown forces, glowing with the same intensity as a full moon on the clearest night. Its light bathed the chamber in silvery illumination that made Gabriel's partially awakened wolf blood tingle with recognition and resonance. Around the central platform stood 7 smaller stone circles, each bearing different runes representing the original covenant packs. 3 of these circles were currently occupied by seated figures, their features indistinct from Gabriel's position at the chamber entrance. "The candidates await," Evelyn said quietly. "Each carries pure covenant blood, untainted by previous bonds, compatible with your specific bloodline. Before you meet them, you should understand that this choice will define not only your personal future, but the nature of the barrier itself. Different pairings create different protective aspects." Gabriel absorbed this information with growing understanding of the complexity involved. This wasn't merely a magical ritual, but the formation of a fundamental bond that would reshape reality itself at the barrier boundaries. "How will I know which is right?" he asked, a question that encompassed far more than mere magical compatibility. "The covenant in your blood will recognize its counterpart," Evelyn replied. "But beyond magical resonance lies something even older, what humans might call the heart's wisdom. Listen to both." With those cryptic words, she led him forward toward the central platform. As they approached, the 3 waiting figures rose from their seated positions, stepping into the silver light where Gabriel could see them clearly for the first time. The first was a young woman, perhaps in her early 30s, with striking features and midnight black hair that contained a distinctive silver streak from temple to crown. Her eyes shifted between human brown and wolf amber as she assessed Gabriel, her posture conveying both strength and grace. "Liana Mooncrest," Evelyn introduced, "granddaughter of Elder Celine, cousin to the captured Thorn. She carries the blood of the original alpha pair who formed the northern quadrant of the barrier." The second candidate was older, perhaps 45, with auburn hair streaked with premature silver and eyes of deepest green. Her face bore the subtle scars of battle, speaking to a warrior's life rather than sheltered nobility. "Serena Wildblood," Evelyn continued, "last survivor of the River Pack Covenant line, master strategist and guardian of the Eastern Territories. Her bloodline formed the binding seals that prevent silvered corruption from spreading beyond the barrier." The third figure stepped forward last, and Gabriel felt an immediate jolt of recognition that preceded conscious identification. She appeared to be in her late 30s, with dark hair containing natural silver highlights and eyes of striking amber gold. Her features carried a quiet dignity and wisdom beyond her apparent years. "Aria Silverlight," Evelyn introduced, though Gabriel had already made the connection, daughter of the last known covenant pairing before the Great Purge, carrier of the rarest wolf bloodline, the Moonsingers, whose magic formed the core binding of the original prison. Gabriel studied each candidate carefully, noting details beyond physical appearance. Liana's youthful energy and obvious physical prowess suggested a bond that would emphasize strength and resilience. Serena's battle-hardened experience and strategic mind offered intellectual compatibility and tested courage. Aria's quiet power and evident wisdom promised deeper connection to the Covenant's original purpose. Yet beyond these rational assessments, Gabriel found his attention repeatedly drawn to Aria Silverlight. Something about her presence called to his awakened blood in ways he couldn't articulate. A resonance beyond conscious thought, as if 2 halves of something long separated recognized their counterpart across the divide. "The process requires time and interaction," Evelyn explained, seemingly unaware of Gabriel's immediate reaction. "You will speak with each candidate individually, sharing memories and experiences through ritual communion. Only then can true compatibility be determined." Gabriel nodded, though his instincts had already formed a preliminary assessment. Still, wisdom suggested thorough evaluation rather than impulsive decision, particularly for a bond that would last a lifetime and shape the fate of 2 worlds. "I am ready to begin," he stated formally, honoring the sacred space and the significance of what transpired here. As he moved toward the central platform to commence the ritual introductions, his thoughts briefly returned to the extraction team now heading into danger to rescue Thorn. Success or failure there would significantly impact their preparations for the Blood Moon ritual, yet this process could not wait. Time moved relentlessly toward celestial alignment, and the ancient enemy pressed against weakening barriers with increasing desperation. Gabriel Blackthorn, once hunter of wolves, now stood at the convergence of bloodlines, destinies, and worlds. Whatever choice he made in the coming hours would echo through generations, assuming any generations remained to remember after the blood moon rose over a world once more threatened by the Silvered One's insatiable hunger. The artificial moon's silvery light bathed his features as he stepped onto the white stone circle, accepting the path that had brought him here and the responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. Hunter, wolf, guardian of the covenant, all three aspects of his heritage united in this moment of choice that would define not only his future, but potentially the survival of all he had once sought to destroy. The artificial moon cast its silver light across the Temple of Convergence, illuminating the white stone circle where Gabriel stood facing the first candidate for the covenant bond. Liana Mooncrest approached with fluid grace, her midnight hair with its distinctive silver streak seeming to absorb and refract the moonlight in mesmerizing patterns. As she stepped onto the circle, ancient runes etched into the stone began to glow softly, responding to her covenant bloodline. The ritual communion requires physical contact, Evelyn explained from the edge of the circle, her voice carrying the formal tone of ceremonial instruction. Blood of covenant calls to blood, revealing truths beyond conscious deception. Liana extended her hands, palms upward in the traditional wolf gesture of peaceful intent. I offer myself willingly to the communion, that truth may be known between us, she intoned, clearly familiar with the ritual words. Gabriel mirrored her gesture, extending his hands palm up, though the words felt foreign on his tongue. I offer myself willingly to the communion, that truth may be known between us. When their palms met, the sensation was immediate and intense, like plunging into ice water and liquid fire simultaneously. Gabriel's partially awakened wolf blood surged in response to the pure covenant bloodline flowing through Liana's veins. His vision blurred, then clarified into something beyond normal sight, perceiving energy patterns flowing between them. With shocking suddenness, memories not his own flooded his consciousness. Liana as a child, learning wolf traditions at Elder Celine's knee. Liana's first shift at 13, earlier than most, marking her exceptional bloodline. Training in combat alongside her cousin Thorn, developing skills that would make her a formidable protector of the pack. The devastating news of Thorn's capture, and her fierce determination to participate in his rescue despite being required for the covenant ritual. Simultaneously, Gabriel realized his own memories were flowing into Liana's mind, his childhood in the guild, training relentlessly under harsh masters, his first wolf hunt at 16, the mix of exhilaration and disturbing unease he couldn't explain at the time. The night of the Great Purge, the confusion and horror he had suppressed beneath dutiful obedience, his gradual withdrawal from active hunting, the growing doubts that had plagued him for decades. Beyond mere memory exchange, the communion revealed deeper aspects of character and temperament. Liana's fierce loyalty to family and pack, her impulsive courage that sometimes bordered on recklessness, her ambition to restore the Moonsilver Pack to its former glory. Her interest in Gabriel was genuine but complex, a mixture of curiosity about the legendary hunter, appreciation for his warrior skills, and calculation about the power their potential union would create. When the communion ended, they stepped apart, both slightly disoriented by the intensity of the connection. Gabriel could sense the magical compatibility between them, strong, vibrant, powerful in a way that would create a formidable barrier against the Silvered Ones. Yet something felt incomplete, a resonance not fully achieved despite the strength of their respective bloodlines. You would make a fearsome pair, Evelyn observed from the edge of the circle, strength calling to strength, warrior to warrior. The northern quadrant would be impenetrable under your combined power. Liana bowed respectfully to Gabriel before stepping back. I honor your journey, Gabriel Blackthorn. Whatever the council decides, know that Moonsilver Pack acknowledges your blood right to stand among us. The formal words carried genuine respect, though Gabriel sensed her personal preference leaned toward a different outcome. In their shared memories, he had glimpsed Liana's secret affection for one of the younger wolves in Fenrir's elite guard, a connection she had subordinated to duty and covenant responsibility. Serena Wildblood approached next, her battle-scarred countenance reflecting a lifetime of protecting territory boundaries against both human encroachment and rogue wolf incursions. As she stepped onto the circle, the runes shifted, glowing with a different pattern that spoke to her particular bloodline heritage. "I offer myself willingly to the communion, that truth may be known between us," she stated, her tone direct and unadorned with ceremony despite the formal words. Gabriel repeated the ritual phrase, then joined his hands with hers. The connection established differently this time, less sudden shock, more gradual building of awareness, like slowly sinking into deep water rather than plunging from a height. Serena's memories unfolded with military precision, organized, categorized, presented almost strategically rather than randomly flowing. He witnessed her childhood as the daughter of the River Pack's war chief, learning battle tactics before most children mastered basic shift control. Her ascension through pack ranks despite gender barriers in the more traditional river territories. The devastating ambush that had killed her entire family during the Great Purge, her narrow escape, and years spent as a solitary survivor before finding sanctuary at Iron Peak. Most striking was her analytical assessment of their potential bond, a commander's evaluation of strategic advantage rather than personal connection. She recognized the tactical benefits of joining the most experienced wolf strategist with the guild's legendary hunter, creating a barrier section that would anticipate and counter any attempted breach through military precision. When they separated, Gabriel understood clearly what this bond would offer: unmatched strategic protection, a barrier section that would adapt and respond to attacks with intelligent countermeasures. Yet again, despite strong magical compatibility, something fundamental seemed missing from the resonance between them. "A pairing of minds," Evelyn noted. "The Eastern Seals would become living fortifications under your combined influence, capable of anticipating and countering the Silvered One's strategies before manifestation." Serena nodded acknowledgement, her green eyes assessing Gabriel with professional respect rather than personal interest. "You think like a wolf commander despite your human training. The Covenant would be well served by such a mind, regardless of which pairing the Council approves." As she stepped back, Gabriel found his attention drawn inexorably to the third candidate. Arya Silverlight approached the white stone circle with quiet dignity, her movements neither as martially precise as Serena's nor as naturally graceful as Lyanna's, but containing an underlying purpose that commanded attention without demanding it. The moment she stepped onto the circle, the runes reacted differently than with either previous candidate, not merely glowing brighter, but shifting into entirely new configurations, ancient symbols reforming themselves as if awakening from long dormancy. The artificial moon above seemed to pulse in response, its silver light intensifying specifically around Arya's form. "The Moonsinger bloodline," Evelyn whispered, awe evident in her voice. "The rarest Covenant lineage, thought lost until Arya's mother was discovered hiding among humans 3 decades ago." Arya extended her hands, palm upward, and spoke the ritual words with a voice that seemed to carry harmonics beyond normal hearing, subtle tones that resonated with the stone beneath their feet. "I offer myself willingly to the communion, that truth may be known between us." When Gabriel repeated the phrase and their palms met, the experience transcended anything he had felt with the previous candidates. Rather than merely exchanging memories or sensing compatibility, he felt as if a piece of himself long missing had suddenly returned, a completion so fundamental he hadn't recognized its absence until this moment. Arya's memories flowed into his consciousness not as separate experiences, but as complementary aspects of a shared journey. Her birth to a Covenant mother who had escaped the Great Purge by hiding among humans, much as his own mother had hidden his wolf heritage. Her discovery of her abilities at age 16, the same year Gabriel had experienced his first disturbing doubts about wolf hunting. Her mother's deathbed revelation about her Moonsinger heritage, coinciding with Gabriel's decision to leave active guild service. Most extraordinary was the revelation that their paths had nearly crossed multiple times throughout their lives. Arya passing through villages days after Gabriel had departed, seeking sanctuary in forests he had recently traversed, both drawn to similar locations at different moments, as if some cosmic choreography kept them aware of, but separate from each other until precisely the right moment. The communion deepened beyond memory into something Gabriel had no frame of reference to describe. He sensed the covenant magic awakening fully in his blood, responding to its perfect counterpart in Arya's Moonsinger lineage. Images formed in their shared consciousness, not past memories but potential futures, glimpses of what their combined power might accomplish against the Silvered Ones. When the connection finally ended, both remained motionless for several moments, adjusting to the sensation of separation after such profound union. The runes beneath their feet continued to glow with unprecedented brilliance, and the artificial moon above seemed to have shifted its position slightly to focus directly above them. "The core binding," Evelyn said softly, her formal ceremonial tone giving way to genuine wonder. "Not seen in 7 generations. The Moonsinger and the Triple Blood, united to form the heart of the barrier itself." Arya's amber gold eyes held Gabriel's gaze with calm certainty. No formal words were necessary between them now. The communion had revealed everything: perfect magical compatibility, aligned life experiences despite opposite sides of the ancient conflict, and something beyond both that defied rational explanation but registered as absolute truth in blood and bone. Elder Selene entered the Temple of Convergence, her ancient presence commanding immediate attention despite her physical frailty. She observed the still glowing runes with knowing eyes. "The choice is made," she stated, "not by council decree, but by covenant itself. The blood recognizes its counterpart across the divide of centuries." The 3 candidates formed a semicircle before the elder, with Arya standing slightly apart, the continued resonance between her and Gabriel visible in the subtle energy patterns connecting them even after physical contact had ended. "Lyanna Mooncrest," Elder Selene addressed her granddaughter, "your strength and courage honor our lineage. The northern quadrant requires your protection during the blood moon ritual. You will stand guardian while the core binding forms." Lyanna bowed acceptance, relief briefly crossing her features before disciplined control returned. "I serve the covenant as required, Elder." "Serena Wildblood," the Elder continued, "your strategic mind has identified vulnerabilities in our defensive formations. You will coordinate our forces against the Light Society's inevitable attack during the ritual. The Eastern Seals must hold until the new barrier stabilizes." Serena nodded sharply, already mentally mapping defensive positions and resource allocations. "The barrier will hold, Elder, whatever forces they bring against us." Finally, Elder Selene turned to Arya. "Arya Silverlight, last Moonsinger, the Covenant has chosen you as its voice in the coming ritual. You will bond with Gabriel Blackthorn during the blood moon to form the core binding upon which all other barriers depend." Arya inclined her head in formal acknowledgement, though the communion had already confirmed what the elder now officially declared. "I accept the Covenant's choice and the responsibility it entails." The elder's gaze shifted to Gabriel. "Hunter who carries wolf blood, enemy who shares our heritage, the path before you offers no return to former certainties. Do you accept this bond and all it represents, not merely for the ritual's sake, but for the lifetime commitment it creates between you and Arya Silverlight?" Gabriel felt the weight of history pressing upon this moment, centuries of conflict potentially healed or perpetuated by his decision. Yet beyond the grand historical implications lay the personal truth revealed during communion. Something within him had recognized Arya instantly, had responded to her presence with the certainty of coming home after a lifetime of wandering. "I accept," he said simply, the words carrying weight beyond their brevity. "For the Covenant's sake and for truth long denied." Elder Selene nodded, satisfaction evident beneath her formal demeanor. "Then it is decided. The final preparations will commence immediately. The blood moon rises in 17 days, and much remains to be accomplished before—" A sudden commotion at the temple entrance interrupted the ceremony. A young wolf burst into the sacred space, protocol forgotten in obvious urgency. "The extraction team has returned," he announced breathlessly. Alpha Fenrir is gravely wounded. They've recovered Thorn, but the Light Society was prepared for our tactics. They allowed the rescue to spring a trap. Elder Celine's composure cracked momentarily, concern for both her grandson and the Moonsilver Alpha evident despite her disciplined control. Bring them to the healing chambers immediately. Council members will convene there directly. As the ceremonial gathering dissolved into urgent activity, Gabriel caught Arya's gaze across the dissolving ritual circle. Without words, he understood her thoughts. The successful rescue carried hidden costs that would impact their preparation time, while revealing that the Light Society possessed knowledge they shouldn't have had. Something had changed in the balance of power, and not in their favor. "Go," Arya said quietly. "Your tactical knowledge may help us understand what went wrong. We will continue our communion later, when immediate crises have been addressed." Gabriel nodded, following Elder Celine from the temple toward the healing chambers in the fortress above. As he ascended the spiraling stairway, his mind sorted through possibilities with the methodical precision of a lifetime spent analyzing enemy tactics. The Light Society had anticipated the extraction team's approach, had been prepared for strategies only someone intimately familiar with their protocols could have developed. The implications disturbed him deeply. Either his knowledge was outdated, rendered obsolete by changes since his departure from active service, or worse, the enemy had sources within Iron Peak itself, providing information about their plans and capabilities. The healing chambers occupied an entire wing of the fortress, a series of interconnected rooms designed specifically for treating wolf injuries. Unlike human medical facilities with their sterile atmosphere and technological focus, these spaces emphasized natural elements known to enhance wolf recovery: moonlight channeled through crystal apertures, living plants with healing properties, stone basins where water from underground hot springs circulated continuously. In the central chamber, Fenrir lay on a raised platform of white stone similar to the ritual circle in the temple below. His wounds were extensive and severe, deep, silver-laced gashes across his torso and legs, burns characteristic of Light Society weapons on his arms and shoulders, and most concerning, a ritual dagger still embedded in his left side, the silver blade preventing his natural healing from sealing the wound. A team of healers worked around him, led by a middle-aged woman with intricate silver tattoos, marking her as an Omega specialized in battlefield trauma. They chanted in the ancient wolf language while applying poultices and manipulating energy flows around the wounded Alpha. On an adjacent platform lay Thorn, Elder Celine's grandson. His condition appeared marginally better than Fenrir's, though evidence of prolonged torture marked his body. Systematic silver burns arranged in ritual patterns, strategic wounds designed to extract maximum pain while preserving life, the unmistakable glazed expression of one who had endured days of specialized Light Society interrogation techniques. Elder Celine moved immediately to her grandson's side, placing a gnarled hand on his forehead in a gesture that combined grandmotherly concern with formal alpha assessment of a pack member's condition. "The physical wounds will heal," the lead healer reported to the gathering council members. "The psychological damage remains undetermined. They extracted significant information before our team arrived." Gabriel approached Fenrir's platform, studying the Alpha's wounds with professional assessment that transcended species loyalty. The pattern of injuries told a clear tactical story: initial success in penetrating the Light Society's perimeter, unexpected reinforcements arriving from concealed positions, a fighting retreat while protecting the recovered prisoner. Most telling was the ritual dagger in Fenrir's side. Gabriel recognized it immediately as a soul tether, a specialized Light Society weapon designed not merely to wound, but to create a magical connection between victim and wielder. Through this connection, the dagger's owner could potentially access the Alpha's memories, track his movements, even influence his perceptions under certain conditions. "This blade must be removed immediately," Gabriel stated, interrupting the healing proceedings with urgency that overrode protocol. "It's not merely causing physical damage, but establishing a magical conduit. Every moment it remains embedded strengthens the connection." The lead healer frowned at his intervention. Removing silver blades prematurely can cause catastrophic bleeding in wolf physiology. We must stabilize the surrounding tissue before extraction. The tactical risk outweighs the medical concern, Gabriel countered, drawing on his guild knowledge of Light Society weapons. This specific dagger design, the soul tether, creates a progressive binding. Within hours, removal becomes impossible without killing the victim. Within days, the wielder can access thoughts and sensory information directly. Elder Celine's sharp gaze shifted between Gabriel and the wounded Alpha. You recognize this weapon specifically? I've encountered them during specialized hunt operations, Gabriel confirmed grimly. They're reserved for high-value targets the Light Society wishes to monitor rather than immediately eliminate. The fact they used one on Fenrir suggests they consider him more valuable as an intelligence source than as a casualty. The implications hung heavily in the healing chamber. If the soul tether remained, everything Fenrir saw, heard, or learned would potentially be accessible to their enemies, including ritual preparations, defensive strategies, and most critically, the identities of those participating in the blood moon ceremony. Can it be removed safely? Elder Celine asked, abandoning ceremony for direct practicality. Gabriel nodded. With proper countermeasures. The extraction must be performed by someone with knowledge of the binding magic, using silver-resistant materials to break the connection simultaneously with physical removal. You have such knowledge? The elder pressed. I was trained in counter-ritual techniques during my time with the Guild's elite hunters, Gabriel confirmed. We were taught to recognize and neutralize Light Society magic when encountered during operations. A moment of silent communication passed between Elder Celine and the lead healer, subtle shifts in posture and expression that spoke volumes in wolf body language. Finally, the healer stepped back from Fenrir's platform with obvious reluctance. Proceed, Elder Celine commanded. But understand the consequences of failure rest on your shoulders, Hunter Wolf. Gabriel approached without hesitation, mentally reviewing counter-ritual procedures not performed in decades, yet still etched in muscle memory from countless drills. He examined the dagger more closely, noting the specific rune pattern etched into the silver blade, indicators of which Light Society faction had created it, and consequently, which countermeasures would prove most effective. I need specific materials, he stated, issuing requirements with the calm authority of someone who knew exactly what the situation demanded. Pure iron filings, untouched by silver, water from a natural spring that has never reflected moonlight, cloth woven by human hands but never worn by wolf-kind. The requests might have seemed arbitrary to observers unfamiliar with Light Society magic, but each item served a specific purpose in countering the ritual binding. The healers dispersed to gather the required materials, leaving Gabriel momentarily alone with the wounded Alpha. Fenrir's eyes flickered open, recognition dawning despite his weakened state. The trap, he rasped, voice barely audible. They knew. Everything, every approach vector, every tactic you suggested. Conserve your strength, Gabriel advised, though his mind raced with implications. The Light Society hadn't merely anticipated their rescue attempt, but had known the specific strategies Gabriel had outlined, details shared only within Iron Peak's most secure planning rooms. Traitor, Fenrir managed before pain overtook him again. Among us, high-ranked, access to council chambers. The healers returned with the requested materials before Gabriel could press for more information. He focused his attention on the immediate task, preparing the counter-ritual with methodical precision. The iron filings were arranged in a specific pattern around the embedded dagger, the spring water applied to break the magical conductivity between blade and wielder, the human-woven cloth wrapped around his hands to create a barrier between his own blood and the ritual magic. Hold him down, Gabriel instructed the strongest healers. When the blade is removed, the backlash will trigger involuntary shifting. He must remain stationary until the binding breaks completely. 4 wolf healers moved into position, using their supernatural strength to secure Fenrir's limbs against the anticipated convulsions. Gabriel placed his cloth-wrapped hands on the dagger's hilt, positioned exactly as guild training had drilled into him. The moment of extraction would require perfect timing, the physical removal synchronized precisely with the magical countermeasures to sever the soul tether's connection. Gabriel began the counter-ritual, speaking words in ancient Latin that the guild had appropriated from forgotten texts, phrases that disrupted the geometric precision of Light Society magic through deliberately introduced asymmetry. As he chanted, the iron filings began to move of their own accord, forming countersymbols to the runes etched on the blade. The moment of alignment arrived, a subtle shift in energy that only someone trained in ritual detection could perceive. Gabriel acted instantly, extracting the dagger in a single fluid motion while simultaneously completing the counterphrase that severed the magical connection. Fenrir's body convulsed violently, partial shifting rippling across his form as his wolf aspect fought to heal the suddenly open wound. Silver-tinged blood flowed freely, but rather than spreading across the stone platform, it was drawn into the iron filing pattern, neutralizing the magical contamination. For several tense moments, the outcome remained uncertain. Then, gradually, Fenrir's convulsions subsided, his breathing stabilized, and normal wolf healing visibly accelerated around the wound. The soul tether had been broken. Gabriel placed the extracted dagger carefully on a separate table, ensuring no continued contact with the wounded alpha. The blade itself remained dangerous, a repository of whatever information had been collected through the connection thus far, potentially accessible to its creator through secondary rituals. "The immediate danger is past," he announced to the waiting council members, "but we face a greater threat than previously understood. The Light Society possesses detailed knowledge of our tactics and defenses. Someone with access to our most secure deliberations is feeding information directly to our enemies." Elder Celine's ancient eyes narrowed dangerously. "A traitor among the council itself? Impossible. The blood oaths binding our leadership would prevent such betrayal." "Not impossible," Gabriel countered, decades of hunter instinct overriding diplomatic caution. "Merely unprecedented. The Silvered One's influence grows stronger as the blood moon approaches. Even blood oaths might be circumvented by their corrupting power if the right vessel were found." Tension rippled through the gathered wolves, suspicion suddenly poisoning the unity that had defined their resistance thus far. Each leader subtly assessed the others, searching for signs of corruption or deception that might reveal the hidden traitor. "We cannot afford division now." Arya's voice cut through the growing mistrust as she entered the healing chamber. "Suspicion without evidence serves only our enemy's purpose." She approached Gabriel with purposeful strides, her presence somehow calming the charged atmosphere through the natural authority of her Moonsinger bloodline. The resonance between them had strengthened since their communion, allowing a level of wordless communication that transcended normal interaction. "The dagger itself may reveal its master," she suggested, indicating the soul tether Gabriel had extracted. "Moonsinger techniques can sometimes reverse magical connections, following the bond back to its source." Gabriel nodded, understanding immediately. "A counter-trace using the existing magical signature. Risky, but potentially revealing." "Too dangerous before the blood moon," Elder Celine objected. "We cannot risk our only Moonsinger on uncertain magical experimentation when the ritual approaches." Arya met the elder's concern with quiet determination. "More dangerous is proceeding with preparations, while an unknown traitor provides our enemies with critical information. The risk is necessary and calculated." The standoff between Elder and Moonsinger created a palpable tension in the healing chamber. Though Celine technically outranked Arya in the pack hierarchy, the Moonsinger bloodline carried special authority in matters of covenant magic. Neither could simply command the other in this domain of overlapping responsibilities. "I will assist," Gabriel stated, breaking the impasse. "My guild training included counter-trace protections. Together we can minimize the risk while potentially identifying our betrayer." Elder Celine's expression remained troubled, but she recognized the necessity of action despite the danger. "Proceed with caution. We cannot afford to lose either of you before the blood moon rises." As the council members departed to implement heightened security measures throughout Iron Peak, Gabriel and Arya remained with the soul tether, examining its properties more carefully now that immediate crisis had passed. "This is a masterwork weapon," Gabriel noted, studying the intricate rune patterns etched into the silver blade. "Created by a Light Society archmagus of significant rank. The craftsmanship suggests personal attention rather than mass production." Arya nodded agreement, her Moonsinger senses perceiving aspects of the weapon invisible to normal sight. "The magical signature is distinctive and powerful. Whoever created this blade possesses exceptional talent with silver manipulation." "That narrows possibilities considerably," Gabriel said thoughtfully. "Only a handful of Light Society members achieve such mastery. Most are known to the Guild by reputation, if not direct encounter." They prepared for the counter-trace ritual with methodical thoroughness, establishing protective circles to contain any magical backlash and shield themselves from potential counterattack if the wielder sensed their probe. Arya's Moonsinger abilities proved complementary to Gabriel's guild training, her intuitive understanding of covenant magic filling gaps in his more structured tactical knowledge. As they worked, the connection between them deepened naturally, building upon the foundation established during their formal communion. Gabriel found himself anticipating her needs before she expressed them, passing required materials or adjusting ritual configurations with instinctive coordination that belied their brief acquaintance. "The bond is developing already," Arya observed during a brief pause in preparations. "Even without formal completion, our bloodlines recognize each other across the divide." Gabriel nodded, experiencing the truth of her words beyond intellectual understanding. "Is this normal? I was given to understand the mate bond required specific ritual completion during the blood moon." "For ordinary wolves, yes," Arya explained. "But covenant bloodlines operate differently, particularly when both participants carry such concentrated heritage. The communion in the temple initiated a process that will culminate during the ritual, but aspects of the connection form progressively rather than instantaneously." This explanation aligned with Gabriel's experience since their hands had touched in the Temple of Convergence, a gradual but steady strengthening of awareness between them, moments of shared perception that transcended normal senses, occasional glimpses of her emotional state without verbal communication. "It's both comforting and unsettling," he admitted, trusting the nascent bond enough for honesty. After decades of solitary existence, to suddenly share consciousness with another being. "The adjustment period challenges even those born to wolf culture," Arya acknowledged. "For someone raised human, denying the very possibility of such connection, the transition must be particularly disorienting." Their conversation paused as they completed the final preparations for the counter-trace. The soul tether now lay at the center of concentric rings of protective symbols, surrounded by materials designed to channel and focus the reverse connection back to its creator without endangering those performing the ritual. "Ready?" Gabriel asked, taking position at the northern point of their ceremonial configuration. Arya nodded, moving to the southern position where her Moonsinger abilities would provide maximum effect. "Remember, maintain your mental shields precisely as we discussed. If the wielder senses our probe, they will attempt to establish connection through any vulnerability they can identify." Together, they began the counter-trace ritual, their voices weaving complex harmonies in the ancient wolf language Gabriel somehow understood, despite never formally learning it, another manifestation of his awakened heritage. The soul tether responded immediately, the silver blade glowing with unsettling blue-black light as its magical connections activated under their combined influence. Images began forming in the air above the dagger, fragmentary glimpses of locations, conversations, faces half revealed, then dissolving into shadow. The counter-trace followed the magical signature backward through its creation history, revealing flashes of the rituals used to forge the weapon, the hands that had crafted its deadly perfection, the purpose imbued within its very substance. Suddenly, a face appeared with shocking clarity, a man Gabriel recognized instantly from his guild days. Magistrate Thornfield, the council representative who had recruited him to investigate the border attacks, stared back at them through the magical connection, his features distorted by silver-black corruption that revealed his true nature as a vessel for the Silvered Ones. "Thornfield," Gabriel breathed, momentarily dropping his mental shields in shock at the betrayal. He orchestrated everything from the beginning. The moment of vulnerability proved costly. The magical connection suddenly reversed direction, the countertrace becoming a conduit rather than merely a viewing portal. Thornfield's silver-black eyes focused directly on them, awareness and malevolent recognition flashing across his corrupted features. "Found you, half-breed," the magistrate's voice echoed through the connection, distorted but unmistakable. "The sanctuary's location remains hidden, but now I know who leads their resistance. The Moonsinger lives, and the Butcher of Moon Silverpack stands with her. How deliciously ironic." Arya moved with impressive speed, slamming her palm down on the soul tether and severing the connection with a pulse of pure Moonsinger power. The backlash knocked both of them backward, disrupting the ritual circle but successfully closing the magical conduit before further information could be exchanged. As they recovered from the magical shock, the implications of what they had discovered settled heavily between them. Thornfield, a high-ranking guild magistrate with access to their most elite hunters and the council's complete resources, was not merely working with the Light Society, but had been corrupted by the Silvered Ones themselves. "He knows about you now," Gabriel stated grimly, helping Arya to her feet. "About us. About the Moonsinger bloodline surviving." Arya nodded, her expression troubled but resolute. "But he still doesn't know Iron Peak's location or our specific ritual plans. The sanctuary remains protected for now." "For now," Gabriel agreed. "But with Thornfield's resources and his new awareness of key participants, the Blood Moon ritual faces greater danger than ever before. They will throw everything they have against us when they determine we represent the last hope of maintaining the barriers." Their eyes met in perfect understanding, the nascent bond between them carrying certainty that transcended words. The final confrontation would come during the Blood Moon itself, when the barriers naturally thinned and the ritual to reinforce them rendered participants temporarily vulnerable. Thornfield and his silvered masters would concentrate every resource on preventing their union and destroying the Covenant bloodlines permanently. 17 days remained until celestial alignment would bring the Blood Moon to its zenith above Iron Peak. 17 days to prepare defenses, strengthen their developing bond, and gather what allies remained in a world manipulated for centuries by patient, implacable enemies who recognized this moment as their best opportunity for freedom in a millennium. The traitor they sought had not been within Iron Peak's walls, but placed at Gabriel's side from the beginning, orchestrating his involvement while reporting every discovery to the Silvered Ones. The hunt had been reversed, the hunter becoming unknowing prey in a game whose true stakes he had only now begun to comprehend. As they departed the healing chamber to report their findings to Elder Selene and the council, Gabriel felt the weight of responsibility settling across his shoulders, not merely for the ritual itself, but for the consequences of success or failure that would echo across generations. The covenant in his blood had finally awakened fully, accepting its purpose after decades of dormancy. The Blood Moon approached, and with it, the final confrontation between ancient enemies that would determine the fate of two worlds and the ancient darkness that threatened to consume them both.